Good evening, sir. Good evening, Dhananjay.
Good evening.
Good evening to all of you.
Yeah.
Good evening, Dr. Barman.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good evening.
You'll be the reporter, yeah?
Yes, sir.
So are you based in Calcutta or somewhere else?
Yes, sir. I am based in Calcutta, actually in Barakpur. It is northern Kolkata, from Central Research Institute for Jute and Allied Fibers, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it will be a long session, yeah?
Yeah, that's why I am prepared. Just.
So, sir, we can just start this session. Initially, some introduction remark would be there. So, by dot 5:40, you can start. So, should we start the?
Yes.
So, good evening, good morning to everybody as per your location. So, on behalf of organizer and on behalf of ISCAR, I would like to welcome you all in this important session of ISCAR. This session is on climate change and disaster occurrence, and the session is on climate change trend, a dynamic phenomena, and its impact on agriculture, fisheries, forestry, and animal husbandry. On behalf of ISCAR, I welcome Dr. Monirul Kadir Mirza to chair this session. He is joining this session from Canada, and I also would like to invite and welcome Dr. Dipendu Datta from ISRO to co-chair this session. Dr. Monirul Kadir Mirza is a professor of Department of Physical and Environmental Science, University of Toronto, Scarborough, and also his research area is on hazards and their management, climate change, hydrology, and associated vulnerability, impact, and adaptation strategy. He is a lead. He was a lead author to the special regional report of IPCC fourth assessment report, and for that he received the special award from Government of Canada as well as Bangladesh for his contribution to the IPCC. And Dr. Dipendu Datta, today's co-chairman, is a general manager of Regional Remote Sensing Center East, National Remote Sensing Center, and he did his PhD from Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi. His major research interest is on the hyperspectral remote sensing, and he also developed a hyperspectral data processing tool, and which is of great use for field scale hyperspectral data analysis. The session would be reported by Dr. Dhananjay Burman. He is a principal scientist from ICR, Central Research Institute for Jute and Allied Fiber. So, Dr. Monirul is now kindly chair this session. Only one request from organizer point of view: kindly stick to the time, because this is important in this webinar symposium.
Thank you very much.
You can start the proceedings of the session.
Thank you very much. And we will have an exciting session. And this session will be on climate change and disaster occurrence and its impacts. And IT remote sensing and rapid dissemination and early warning protocols, mainstreaming climate change policies for regional integration. We have 7 invited presentation and 6 regular presentation. And invited presentations will be 20 minutes, each of them. And I would like to request you to finish around 16 and 17 minutes, and then we keep 2 to 3 minutes for questioning and answering. And our first invited presentation will be given by Dr. Srinivasa Rao. Dr. Rao is the director of ICAR, National Academy of Agriculture Research Management in Hyderabad, in Telangana, India. And his title of his presentation is Impacts of Climate Change and Weather Forecasting on the Agriculture and Food Systems in Coastal Ecosystems of India. Professor Rao, you will have 20 minutes to make this presentation. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khadir Mirzaji, and it's very pleased to see you. And I'm sharing my presentation. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, it is visible, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and all my colleagues, Dr. Shivkumarji and also Dr. Prabhakar, PI Nikra, and Dr. Mandal and all other colleagues. I'll be making next 15, 20, 17 minutes presentation on impacts of climate change and weather forecasting and agriculture and food systems, and particularly in coastal ecosystems. And I'm presenting together myself and Dr. Bal from CREDA, Hyderabad. And of course, climate change across the world, the extreme weather events are in the rise, and it is a phenomena across the world, and this is seen reported in all UNFCCC climate negotiations. Also, I am Indian delegation member to represent agriculture and loss and damages in UNFCCC. So it is in fact, the extreme event numbers are increasing, but it's a variable across depending upon the continents. But here, particularly when coastal ecosystem, we see that cyclones and floods are very, very important features of coastal ecosystem. In India, we have 7,500 coastline and also Andaman Island ecosystems and Andaman Nicobar and 24 Parganas, etc. And if we see that extreme events, the important extreme events are listed during last around 20 years. Here you can see that Not only there are coastal areas are affected with cyclones, but some of the other regions are also affected with the cyclone. The important challenge in terms of climate change for India is that even traditionally dryland regions are receiving floods, and whereas in traditionally high rainfall regions like coastal regions, Kerala and Northeast ecosystems are experiencing mid-season drought. That is really important challenge for Indian agriculture. We need to see that how multiple stress tolerance is getting more important than single tolerance nowadays. We have different ecosystem in India compared to irrigated and rain-fed, hill, mountain, and arid. But I put central point as a coastal ecosystem because large area, large coastline is there, large diversity of the food systems are there in coastline in India. As I was telling that in Andhra Pradesh itself, we have 942 kilometers of coastline in coastal in Andhra Pradesh. But the point is that the cyclonic disturbances over Indian oceans during summer and monsoon and otherwise also, which are being very, very intense, and which I will be taking, of course, climate change as we see that temperature increase and other phenomena. But here cyclones are very, very important. Country is experiencing drought and deficient monsoon or variable rainfall. But one point, there is a difference between droughts and cyclone and floods. At least we can prepare something droughts, but climatic events, especially in coastline cyclones and floods, within short time, within 3 to 5 days, things are happening, becoming very, very difficult to manage the agriculture, and not only agriculture and other systems. Recently, we have made, based on UNFCCC negotiations point of view, we have developed a policy document, Climate Change in Indian Agriculture, Impacts, Coping Strategies, and what are the programs and policies of Government of India towards adaptation and mitigation, authored by myself and Additional Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change, and Director General ICR, and which was summarized and they briefed all the negotiation process from Indian side, what are the Indian contributions on UNFCCC climate negotiations in terms of field crops, horticulture, livestock, fishery and poultry, and thereby specific recommendations have been given in this policy document. And actually you can see that when coastline is so much in India, and almost 130 towns, not only very, very important towns are there in the Indian coast, and 77 cities are within India's 84 coastal districts of India. And enormous socio-economic importance is there. Majority of the largest dense coastal urban populations, for example, Chennai and Kolkata and Mumbai and Visakhapatnam, these things are there. And there really, once cyclones and floods are affected, that economy of the country, not only in agriculture and other issues, including transportation, maritime, and all other issues are seriously affected. I take one example where I am closely associated in the rehabilitation of Hudhud cyclone in Andhra Pradesh in 2014. Earlier, I was Director Krida Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture, where Dr. Mandal was also there at that time. One of the important aspects in Hudhud cyclone in 2014, the approximate 20 billion US worth of loss has happened, the economic losses in 2000, not only in agriculture and a lot of infrastructure and livestock, etc., etc. But wherever we have implemented some of the lot of paddy systems are there in coastline, wherever we have implemented the flood tolerant varieties, earthing of soils, etc., different various agronomic and other management practices along the improved cultivar, tolerant cultivars, that crops are able to sustain compared to other situations. So from ICR side and Krida and ICR side, we developed the impacts of Hudhud cyclone in Andhra Pradesh and adjoining areas also. We submitted this report. And other important aspects are flood tolerant varieties, very important in Northeast ecology, and also some of the varieties and wind breaks, earthing and sowing dates. These are the important economic measures. But most importantly, the loss of annual crops is a loss for 1 year. But severe impacts are happening in coastline, in plantation crops. You can see here the pictures of papaya, coconut, and other along with the field crops. Rice was also affected. But point is that in coastal soils are very all sandy soils, light textured soils. Any high intensity winds are making that these plantation crops are fell down. So that's why wherever wind breaks are there and earthing was done and tolerant varieties were taken. So there we have seen the positive impacts of how to cope, adapt to the these cyclones, high intensities. You can see this picture, but I wanted to see that 1 meter coastlines are very important, and seawater intrusion is the impact of climate change. The 1 meter rise, it is estimated that rise in sea level will displace around 7 million people in coastal region. So this is the point which is highlighted in red color, and it is variable to different states, Andaman, Nicobar, Lakshadweep, and coastal east coast, west coast, and etc. But overall, there is an estimate that these many peoples are there. In terms of, I have put one example how projected yield of climate change on coconut yield. You can see here that coconut yields in east coast is affected to -30 to -40% if we see the projected climate change during by 30 and 2080s. So we have Government of India along with the state governments, we have many programs are being implemented, and I will list out here and some of the district vulnerability maps, and India has made 650 agriculture contingency plans and irrigation efficiency and flood water and all these in terms of animals, vaccination, etc. So these are the different, some I have indicated, but various programs are going how to adapt and mitigate to climate change. And the scenario is that how to help the farmers in cyclones and floods. You can see that here there are two sectors are affected with field crops like livestock in this slide. So providing timely and accurate weather forecast is very critical to save these commodities. And what type of weather forecasts are there? We have short range, medium range, long range. So how to implement these things, how to take decisions, and how to respond not only in terms of preparedness and real-time responses when really cyclones are happening. So how to implement this forecast, for example, the deciding the sowing and transportation of harvested and irrigate and don't irrigate, these are the decisions. Incidents, for example, pesticide application, fertilizer application, post-harvest operations. These are the things can be taken based on the agro advisories. We have estimated that based on these agro advisories, the saving is around 5,000 to 7,000 rupees at per hectare level in the farmers. So, however, there are the instruments, meteorological insurance products are being done. I will not be taking this thing, but these platforms are available, M-Kisan in India and Meghdoot, and these advisories are coming and farmers can register. They are getting these advisories. And important, how to strengthen the advisories are available, how to strengthen the advisories. Our colleagues from CREDA, ICR, IMD, ICRISAT are contributing towards how to implement the contingency plans through ICTs. And but overall in strategies for climate change adaptation in coastal ecosystem, when we want resilient ecosystems in coastal regions towards sustainable, we need enabling policy and national state programs and assisting farmers and adaptive research. These framework need to work hand in hand. However, when we are implementing contingency plans towards preparedness, we need to have preparedness first, then we have to respond to the coastal line cyclones and floods and relief and rehabilitation. So when we are making this thing and infrastructure preparedness, we want infrastructure like farm buildings, rehabilitation centers, and storage go downs. and also at field level, at village level, windbreaks, earthing, irrigation, glasshouse facilities, etc., etc. But nevertheless, whether it is a cyclone and floods, and we are implementing the contingency plans with real-time responses, must-do practices like land treatments, rainwater, and suitable tolerant crops, and suitable farm implements, especially fodder system for animals. And that's why real time in terms of cyclone and flood regions, in coastal regions and island ecosystem, real time responses are very, very important. And we have a lot of fish harvesting and fish drying. How to respond when cyclone is predicted, and within 3 days, 5 days, this dried fish is available. How to go for real-time response is a critical factor. Another important aspect is that when 7,500 kilometers coastline is there, we have to protect the coastal land from that taking away the coastal land. So important, and many regions, this type of structures are being so that erosion of that soil and the land is not affected. Another important technologies are tolerant technologies in coastal regions. Whenever these high intensity rains and coastal and floods are there, some of the tolerant varieties you can see in these slides are subjected to the lodging, and some varieties which are able to tolerate. This information is available in the pictorial depiction that farmer how he is getting, but the networking of the district availability to the this slide I will take covering the fish sector. In one of the intervention, the placement of nylon net along the periphery of ponds in cyclones and floods, we could able to protect the fish systems and out of that flood water. Similarly, horticulture economy is very much affected. In fact, horticulture economy and livestock are affected with climate change impacts. If we lose annual crop, we losing one crop, but horticulture 10 years, 15 years plantation and livestock, we have to see that is very, very important priority for Indian coastal ecosystem. And how to manage the coastal areas with the saline water. Well, saline water intrusion, there is a improvement technology with the subsurface drainage rather than traditional system. So we can see that how we can go with the subsurface drainage along with the salt tolerant paddy system and other system we can make. So the important aspect of the agro advisories from taking the advisories are available at a district level and sub-block mandal level. By to how to downsize to the block level and village level is a key important factor. India is a very, very vast country, and 14 crore farmers are there, and 6 lakh villages are there, and some of the regions are very, very difficult in ecosystems, and how to reach the agro advisory system to the every village is important. Once the advisory is available and preparedness as a part of preparedness, we have to sensitize each district officials how to prepare these 84 district coastal districts in cyclones. So sensitizing the district officials, district agriculture officials and line department is very, very important aspect towards adaptation process. Ultimately, the agro advisories in all these villages, I think we have, there is a system here, the master trainer is there, our village panchayat leader is there, and how he will get the quality of agro advisories and he will disseminate these agro advisories to the other farmers is very, very important aspect. There are other media and social media, all India radio, print media, television, these things are happening. But most important for climate change is coastal ecosystem. Not only coastal ecosystem, community involvement is very, very critical. Unless everybody is sharing, community without maybe efficient seed system and custom hiring center are sharing these resources, community participation is very, very important. And India is a diverse country and with socio-ecologies. And we are seeing that at the policy level, I myself was the chairman for National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture and NMSA for a couple of years under Honorable PMO, it was there. But community is very, very important towards that. And my next speaker, PA NICRA, Dr. Prabhakar is presenting what are the innovations we have brought in climate change projects and NICRA. And weather is very, very important. Water is very, very important. Excess water draining out or conservation. Crop and livestock important, carbon positive, and institutions are very, very important. We have established village climate risk management committees. These things are very, very important to see that ground level implementation of adaptation and long-term mitigation. So finally, I conclude with this thing is what are the strategies for climate change adaptation is that there is increased attention of climate change impact studies and vulnerability in coastal agriculture. A stronger focus on adapting agriculture to current and future, both are important. And things are moving very, very strong focus. For this, a simultaneous short-term and long-term strategies are required. And a short-term responses is real-time contingencies and how to really respond when situation happens and farmer is affected or fishermen are affected in coastline, crops are inundated and livestock are affected, vaccination is required, and long-term strategies to mitigate the climate change beside that. So other aspects of how to reduce the greenhouse gases, especially greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, which are predominantly coming from agriculture sector. So the last slide is that what are the policy interventions in coastline? Hitherto, we have been working in adaptation mitigation strategies, NRM technologies like crop technology, livestock separately. Now there is a need to integrate these technologies at village level, and community-based involvement is very, very important to work integrated strategies towards adaptation. Redesigning the social sector schemes, the focus of vulnerability populations, especially in coastal vulnerability, new credit instruments. Though we have Prime Minister Fasal Bima Yojana is there, and there are many advantaged features are added. For example, this registration fee, base fees is reduced, but registrations are still, we have to see that how to every farmer gets the advantage of these credit instruments. We believe that weather insurance is a major vehicle to transfer the risk. And
you have 1 minute,
yeah,
Dr. Rao.
Yeah, it's over. Last slide. This is the agriculture contingency plans and real-time responses and promoting cooperation, how to see that SAARC countries cooperation and also South-South collaboration. And we want really Indian scientists and policymakers, weather forecasting towards modeling and prediction is very, very important. Thank you very much and welcome to NARM, especially Chairman, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao, for your very important presentation and many innovations of your institution. And it is, you have provided us with many important information, especially the number of people will be affected in the coastal regions of India. Although the number is not that big compared to the total population of India, but coastal area is an important area where people actually all the time they fight with the nature. And our next presenter is Professor Prabhakar from NECRA. And he will present on impact of climate change on coastal agriculture ecosystem adaptation interventions from NECRA. And you have 20 minutes, Dr. Prabhakar.
Yes. I'm trying to share my screen. Can you see the slides?
Yeah, it's
yes, yes.
Go to slides.
At the bottom, you can click over there.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, good morning, distinguished delegates, the chair, co-chair, and my colleagues, my seniors, and all the participants. Dr. Rao, our earlier director, CRIDA, and the present director, NAM, has given a wonderful overview of the impact of climate change on coastal agriculture. And in this, my presentation, I'll be dealing with our experiences in one specific project. It's called NECRA, another 15 minutes or so. Before that, I would like to show in this graph the past 20 years, the country as a whole experiences of the weather aberrations. What you see here in the bars, bottom bars are the deficit years, and other extreme events also have been depicted here. So it says out of 20 years, more than 8 to 9 years are deficit rainfall. That means the frequency of drought occurrence is increasing year after year. Besides this, we have other extreme events like cold wave, heat wave, cyclones, of course, and floods, and recently hailstorms. So this is the past 20 years picture of the country, and now the projections. Recently, IITM has come out with a good publication of how the Indian region is going to experience in the changing climate. I would like to make 2 points here. One is the surface temperatures is going to increase by somewhere between 2 to 4.4 degrees centigrade, and the rainfall, the percent rainfall will be higher, somewhere between 6 to 14% increase in rainfall. Besides this, there is a sea level rise. It's projected to be 300 mm sea level rise for Indian coast, which is very, very high compared to the global mean of 180 mm rise for the next 70 to 80 years or so. So all these things, factors are really a concern for a country like India. Now, with this background, Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture initiated a project which I was referring. It's called NICRA, National Innovations in Climate Resistant Agriculture. This is a network project involving more than 40 HR institutes and hundreds of Krishi Vigyana Kendras, many state agriculture universities, NGOs, and even IITs. We are working on all the sectors of agriculture. It could be horticulture, livestock, crops, fisheries, natural resources. Everything is being addressed here. We have 4 broad objectives. First is research component, to understand and develop resilient technologies. Secondly is to demonstrate the resilient technologies in the farmers' fields. And thirdly, to build the capacities of all the stakeholders, finally to draw policy conclusions from our experiences. This is a brief about this project. And now coming to the research facilities, what we have established project, what you see in this picture is one location where you can see the kind of infrastructure where we can increase the temperatures, we can increase the carbon dioxide, and we can grow several crops. And at the background, you can see the different chambers, tunnels where you can increase the carbon dioxide, whichever greenhouse you wanted to study. So all these facilities are established across the country, not in one place. More than 5 to 6 places we have established these facilities to study the impact of climate change on crops, livestock, fisheries, soil organic carbon, water demand, and also pest and diseases. All these things are covered under this project. As I said, this project was launched in 2011, almost 8 years now. Besides these state-of-the-art facilities, we have also provided a lot of equipments. I don't want to name them, but whatever equipment is required for climate change research facilities have been provided. We have spent around more than 180 crores of rupees for the past 6 years to establish the infrastructure alone, climate change infrastructure alone under this NICRA project. Now, one example for marine fisheries at our CMFR is the partner institutes. We have built a small vessel which carries all the required facilities to take the observations when it sails to sea and come out with the impact of the changing several parameters on marine biosystems. So this is one such facilities in the CMFRI. So with all these facilities, one of the mandate of the project is to establish GHG emission under different production systems. Because in a country like India is such a diverse country and so many production systems, we don't have location-specific coefficient factors for GHG emissions. Now we are addressing in this project. It includes crops, horticulture, livestock, and even fisheries. We have been now working on this now. And then, as you all aware, the resilient varieties plays a very, very crucial role to adaptation of climate change. And now we have, with the support of the funds, we have come out with several resilient varieties, which we have documented in this. One of the documents is available in our NICRA website. For different crops, for different traits, varieties are available. Now it's time to upscale and provide the quality seeds to the farmers so that the benefits will reach to the farmers. And then One example I'll give you, this ongoing project. Most of the coastal areas are vulnerable to floods. So we have one variety, Swarna sub 1, is highly tolerant to floods, stagnating water. Now we want to improve this variety with other stressors like lodging, because it's lodging tolerant. Now we want to make it lodging resistance and also salt tolerant. So all these things, traits are being built up on the already existing variety, so that the one variety Swarna sub 1 would be tolerant to many other factors, multiple tolerant varieties. So I'm giving one example. There are several other examples in several crops like this. Now, tomato is a very, very important crop in India, where this particular crop, because of the aberrant weather conditions, often faces a lot of problems. Now, one such problem is flash floods. Flash floods is creating a lot of problem, and the farmers are incurring losses. We have come out with one technology wherein the tomato is grafted over brinjal. Brinjal is a rootstock, and again the rootstocks are also specific to different varieties. Now we have identified different rootstocks, brinjal rootstocks, which can be grafted over tomato, and this has been tried in several locations, and now the technology is ready to upscale so that we can withstand the waterlogging problem. Coming to marine fisheries, now over the past 8 years, we have fairly good understanding of the vulnerability of the marine fisheries to climate change, with several factors into this. And also we have a fairly good understanding of which species is going to be affected. Now I just listed here some of the species, because such a long coast, some species are vulnerable in some certain areas. So that kind of information we already have. At the same time, we are also working out the mitigation options to conserve these species, and also to see the alternate species which can be taken up the years to come. So this kind of information has also been documented. Now, carbon sequestration. This is another important area wherein we have been working. As far as the mangroves are concerned, seaweeds, we don't have much information on how much carbon they're going to sequester. So we have been working on this, and we estimated the amount of carbon sequestered in these mangroves and also the seaweeds. For a few locations we already covered, and other in the coming years to come we'll expand it to the other locations also, so that at the end of the 5 years we'll have the entire country will have its quantified figures of carbon sequestration potential of seaweeds and mangroves. And aquaculture, another very, very important area which earns a lot of foreign revenue for Government of India. We have worked out the vulnerability of the coastal districts where this aquaculture is very prominent, which could be in terms of the seawater intrusion or untimely rainfall, or it could be also be other factors. All these things are factored in, and all the districts where the aquaculture is very prominent, we identified the vulnerability indices for these regions using the remote sensing and GIS techniques. We also developed certain models, simulation models to study the impact of climate change. What you see here in this slide is sardine, the Indian sardine, how it's going to be affected by sea surface salinity, sea level rise, precipitations, and sea surface temperatures for the years to come. So this is the model has been built up by our CFRA colleagues. Similarly, aquaculture, we don't have any country-specific models for this. We have been working on this by inputting the temperature data, rainfall data, and other feed ingredients. What is the production? How it's going to change? So this kind of information is also now we'll be able to know in the couple of years. Another important area is the carbon footprints. So far, we don't have a very reliable information of carbon footprints for different commodities. Under this project, we are studying footprints. It could be cradle to gate, or even up to growers to graziers, and also is up to farm to fork when it comes to up to storage. Even wastage is also we are considering, so that from cradle to grave is the kind of technology which have been used across the globe. Now we are working on aquaculture. One example I'll give you: aquaculture. A lot of energy goes towards feed production, water pumping. Now this is if we can reduce the emissions here, we can reduce the footprints. And again, marine fisheries, we have developed database of GWP for different mechanized fishing systems. As you see here, a lot of emissions are from diesel, the fuel. So we would definitely, this is the kind of policy decision where we can go for the renewable energy sources to bring down the global warming potential of this marine fish resources. Another area is chloral bleaching. This is another major problem. Now, so Gulf of Mannar, we have taken one sample area where we know which kind of species, and also certain species are going to rejuvenate very fast. So that kind of species we're identifying, and then we are trying to see how long it will take to rejuvenate. All this information is also been available now. Coming to the second part of the presentation, as I said, the demonstration part, we have been working in 151 vulnerable districts for different vulnerabilities. As you can see, it could be drought, heat wave, or salinity, the combination of these things. So far, more than 300 technologies have been demonstrated in 400 plus villages, and thousands of households and farmers have been covered on this project. We also worked out the vulnerability assessment, which at district level. It's a very comprehensive exercise based on several factors. The vulnerability, exposure, and hazard factors, more than 38 factors have been considered, and we know the risk of each district. So what you see here, all the red colored districts are highly risk-prone districts in the country. So like these kind of documents are very useful for the policymakers. Coming to coastal districts, what you see here, the orange ones are the highly risk-prone districts, and green ones are less prone districts. So around 87 districts have been classified as very high and high risk-prone coastal districts. And the blue color, the districts are the places where this NICRA project we are working with the farmers. And when I said we're working with the farmers, is a adoption of one village where we are going with a package of technologies. Whatever is required for the village, the entire package has been adopted, the village, and then a series of technologies. I don't want to go through all the details. All the details have been required packages have been provided to the farmers. One example I'm giving here: flash floods, which variety is required, and post-flood management, crop diversification, summer rise. All these things have been documented. And only one case study I'll take. This is a 24 Parganas district in West Bengal, where our colleague Dr. Mandal is also working here. This is highly flood-prone districts. You can see here the data up to 2002. The number of cyclones is 4.4. Now, for the past 20 years, now it's 6.2 cyclones per year, events per year. Breaching of embarkments, saline water intrusion, poor cropping intensity, all these problems. And this is the kind of the real field images where we captured the impact of cyclones. Now, we have a peculiar problem here during crop season. Excess moisture is creating problem. Inundation, the crop is lost. Post crop, summer, you don't know, there's no water. So this is a peculiar situation. And now our colleagues have come out with some technologies like land shaping is one, where we construct a bund, elevate the land, and provide a broad embankment along the fields. So naturally, the intensive rainfall situations, we are going to drain out the excess water. Dry spells, we have excess water. So this is a win-win situation for both the farmers and also the KVK which is being implemented. The cropping intensity you can see here is possible to increase with this technology, and I'll just show you some of the images. See, kharif paddy vegetables can be grown with this land shaping. The net income increased more than 100% with this single technology. And you can see the traditional plots to be harvested. This is the left side. What you see here, because of land shaping, the crop was able to harvest a bit early. Without land shaping, it's prolonged, so that we can have a time for the second crop. Second crop could be a vegetable, so multiple cropping is possible, and also you can have another season of the crop. So brinjal on the bunds, you can hold the flush vegetables, and this kind of interventions made us possible to understand and demonstrate to the farmers. More than 180 farmers are benefited with these technologies. And my colleague Dr. Mandal and other colleagues, they have quantified the ecosystem services with these technologies. Yeah. And village level interventions like village VCRMCs, customering centers, seed banks, all these things were in place in these villages. We at the same time, we also measured the resilience, how resilient those villages before project and after the project, a kind of index for us to know. Another last tool, what we developed, Dr. Shroff made this mention, contingency plans, agriculture contingency plans. This is a tool, online tool, available on the CRIDA ICAR website, where you can select the district and select the kind of contingency situation. It will pop up the options for different technologies. So with this, I can say that we could able to make the carbon positive farming, and also show the income gains in the aberrant weather conditions, and a lot of human resources and publications. And there is a upscaling of this climate resilient agriculture is also possible from the lessons what we learned in this project. And lastly, we are planning to expand this network flux towers, because we don't have in India. This is a plan for next 5 years. Eddy flux tower, India flux, we are planning. Way forward, definitely would like to upscale the climate resilient technologies and intensify the efforts and mainstream this into the developmental programs. And coming to the research, we would like to make a separate assessment of the coastal districts, and then impact of inland ecosystems. We don't have much information. Seagrass, seaweeds for mitigation potential, and then carbon neutral aquaculture is a very, very important aspect. And also, of course, ecosystem services of inland wetlands, Indian wetlands. So this is the area. So whatever I could try to say and what I could not say, available in the NICRA website. A lot of PDFs are available. Those who are interested, just go through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prabhakar, to enlighten us with many important innovations of NICRA. And very important, most important are your the greenhouse gas emission estimation from field level experiments, and your climate resilient crop varieties and aquaculture. And also, I am very happy to learn that you have innovated many ways to connect the farmers with your new innovations. And thank you very much. Our next presenter is Dr. Sugata Hazra from School of Oceanographic Studies, Jadavpur University, Kolkata. And Dr. Hazra will present on climate change and marine fisheries of Andaman Island, India. And you have 20 minutes, Dr. Hazra.
Hello, good afternoon and good morning to Dr. Mirza and Dr. Datta. And it was such an esteemed gathering. We are a very small center working mostly on Sundarban, as our previous speaker discussed on sea level rise vulnerabilities. But this is, I will be presenting on Andaman. This is our ongoing project from GST. That's about the vulnerability of the coral reef and associated fisheries. So I think you can observe the first page of my presentation. Is that so?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you click on the presentation mode at the right hand side?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's myself and a group of students of mine are undertaking these studies on Andaman. And it's a peculiar area where the mangroves and the coral coexist, because generally mangroves are found in deltas like Sundarbans, or the corals are found in clear water. But here you have you can call a very close association between these two, and is the nutrients and facilities provided by the coral reefs are unique for the coastal ecosystem, which are very good for fisheries. However, in Andamans, though these are marine fisheries, partly which are reef fisheries and partly beyond the reefs, these are intrinsically related. But in spite of being so generously gifted with mangroves and corals, this area is facing intensive impact of changing climate. There are reports as I have quoted, that Indian coral reef experienced 29 widespread bleaching events since 1989. And it is also apprehended that global warming and climate change would exacerbate such events, which will adversely affect the coral reefs and the coral fishery. Even in a 2009 work, Dr. Vivekanandan from CMFRI, he predicted the number of decadal catastrophic bleaching events would be increased from 0 during 2000 to 2009 to 8 during 2080 to 89, and that the reefs would become remnant between 2050 and 60. So with such a green situation looming in front of us, it is very important that we closely monitor these reef systems and its marine fisheries, and we present our data base in such an integrated way so that atmosphere, ocean, along with the mangroves, the fisheries, the different species level monitoring would be necessary, particularly in terms of the kind of widespread India-wise impact of climate change that our previous two speakers have described. So for that, you need a very special assessment of the where are the reefs and where are they most vulnerable. So these we did with the Sentinel-2 data and established, like the previous estimates by Jayashankar, that 950 kilometers square of coral reefs are there with 400 kilometers square of mangrove. And we mapped the area. The highlighted ones are here, showing the small islands like Neil or Smith and Ross Islands, or the Mahatma Gandhi National Park. So with this, if you plot the bleaching events, you'll find a very interesting phenomena that either the reefs in the previous slides that I have shown in the northern part are not very much bleached, or this is the only area where the studies were undertaken from 1998 to 2016. So several bleaching events we could, our previous workers could identify in these areas. As one of our previous speaker mentioned, that there are some coral species which are more resilient, like the, you can say the massive corals are more resilient than the acropore kind of fungal, branch corals. So these kind of observation will lead towards assessment of specific vulnerabilities of different coral reef sites to bleaching and climatic changes. So these are the reports, these are observation in the bleach coral part, and these are the report, particularly the very important report after 2010 is by Mondal, Marimuthu, and Mahanti, 2017. He reported also one event of 2016, and where the temperature was 31.8 degrees centigrade to 32.3, and the areas here specified. And also here in 2nd May, 31.7 degree, whereas in April, May, 30.5 to 30.4 degrees centigrade. These are all above the, much above the average threshold. However, coming to the fisheries of Andaman, if you collect the data of the total fish catch, because you may not find any event, signature of any disaster other than the tsunami, where the fish catch suddenly dropped below to 10,000 tons level. But here, with increasing efforts and more mechanization of fisheries, so the output continued to increase. So how do you actually see the impact of coral bleaching on coral fisheries with this kind of data set? And very interestingly, Andaman fisheries is hardly exploiting 30% of its estimated resource. So in that case of underexploited fishery, to see the signature of the bleaching and impact of other disasters like cyclones and other things we need much more high resolution analysis and data set. So if we now analyze what we would find in Dr. Kaliamurthy's paper in 2020, and then we can actually divide the trips with the catch and take an estimate in tons, you may see that different in the southern landing center wise, you can see that 2006 impact of 2016 bleaching in the serious fall in the catch per trip, not the total catch. So this is one indicator that how the coral and coastal fisheries might be affected in Andamans. Or if we compute, as we have compiled the data from Dr. Damroy in 2010 and EIA report of 2018, then we can see the perch fisheries, which are very much dependent upon the coral reefs, are showing evidences of 1998 bleaching, 2002 bleaching events, 2005 tsunami events, 2004 events, which is manifested in 2005 fish catch, 2009 bleaching events. And also there is a tendency for 2015 and 16. So that kind of higher resolution analysis, particularly which part yield in tons, that was also compiled from Damroy 2010 and Rose of 2010 and the EIA of Andaman Nicobar of 2018, that you can actually decipher the impact of bleaching, coral bleaching that we have established in the previous discussion, and the tsunami, as well as a bleaching event here, 2009, a bleaching event, and then again in 2016, it is going down. So now if we analyze the SST from the Moody's data set on the month of April, and if we fix a threshold temperature for coral bleaching in 30.4, you may come out with high temperature events most of the month of April, which are above 38.8 in different years. So Andaman is somehow facing a very higher temperature threshold. And in the month of May, you can identify the bleaching events from very high temperature of 2009 or very high temperature of 2016, that is beyond 31, and of 2020. This is a new event that needs confirmation from the field because we couldn't go there because of the field, this COVID phenomenon. So we tried to see how long this warm event persisted. So the days of heating in the higher temperature regime. With that data, we didn't have the, overall the UKMO had CM model data of the SST. So for that, we have used the Codex dataset for the near surface air temperature, and we have tried to calibrate it. This is an ongoing project because we will be using the final SST data, but this is the air temperature data that we could get from calibrated Moody's data, SST data with the Codex derived maximum air temperature data of the different months. And we did a bias correction of our model developed from the Codex dataset for this region, Andaman region, 2 degree by 2 degree. And so that is the predictive model with the variability and train with the RCP 4-point scenario. We could develop what will be the maximum mean daily maximum temperature data. So we find that it has risen quite in a high way, but in 2030, in the next decade, it will rise, but in a much lesser extent, but then it may fall. So you can establish the trend. And with that trend, if you now compute with a small program that for each year, the daily temperature data of month of April and May, we have considered for the bleaching events to locate when will the future bleaching in the Andaman region and when the fisheries have to take appropriate action to sustain the fisheries output. So these days, where the temperature for these 2 months exceed the threshold of 30.4 degree that were listed initially, then the temperature of a particular date exceeds the monthly mean of maximum temperature for that March and the corresponding year by 1 degree, and only those dates were considered where the corresponding bleaching temperature was reached. And out of these filtered days, whenever the bleaching temperature persisted at a stretch for more than 3 or more consecutive days, this was considered to be one of the occurrence of high temperature event of potential bleaching. So with that, we computed for 2001 to 10, 16, and 20, and we could identify that our predictions are quite matching with the 2005, 2010, and 2016 data of coral bleaching that we have mentioned earlier. So with that, we could identify that what will be the, in 2022, there will be another bleaching high temperature event of 7 days, 2028, it will be a 4 days event, but 30 onwards, the number of bleaching events would start to increase. So with this situation, the number of high temperature incidents are increasing in leaps and bounds over the decades in future. And these intensities and the duration of the bleaching can further be modified with El Nino events and the positive IRDs, so that will incorporate in our analysis. But very importantly, this 2005 or 2009 or 2015-16 and even 2019-20 was El Nino years, not 1920 of that high intensity. El Nino index in 3.4 was 0.7, but these 2015 and 2009-10 was the very high, strong El Nino years, 2009 and part of 2010. So, and the impact of the Indonesian thorough flow, which is bringing the Pacific warm water mass through the 10-degree channel, that actually explain the reason that why the southern part of the Andaman coral reefs and the landing centers there, they are facing the maximum bleaching, not the northern part of Andaman, and they are suffering more. So where we have to take appropriate actions and when we have to take appropriate action, particularly we are forecasting a 2022 bleaching, it's very short. So even this can be verified within a very short time. So I think we can conclude that with sustainable fishing practices in Andaman can be incorporated in the NICRA and other planning. It must have been already done. But as we have seen now in our previous slide, that only the perch fisheries are showing the highest impact. And this is the most favored fish there. So other fishes might not respond so strongly, say the pomfret or the neritic tuna. So they are not responding to the bleaching because they are much beyond. So what will be our strategy then? So fishing beyond the reef, particularly the tuna fishing, is a sustainable fishing option that should be popularized because Andaman is operating with much less quantum of tuna fishing boats. We should introduce fuel training and boat subsidies to local communities that are being done already, but in a much better way so that they change their targets of species from, let's say, that perch to other species. And it is integrating the ecosystem model like EcoPath and EcoSim that we have tried here for Hilsa to predict that what is the sustainable limit of the catch, and then to ease the fishing pressure on selected target species. Minimum legal size regulation is there, but it has to be implemented to protect the juvenile fish. That also we are trying in this Sundarban region where they are using zero mesh net to catch the prawn seeds for the aquaculture farms. And we should introduce the eco-labeling certification program, as well as marine stewardship through regular structured assessment, which can give a little light towards sustainable fishing. However, as our previous speakers have mentioned, regenerating coral reefs, identifying the more sustainable coral species and trying to replant them in the bleached areas are important, because it has to be taken into consideration that other than the warming and the Indonesian thorough flow, there are huge pressure on the tourism on the coral sites, which are also aiding in the bleaching by releasing a lot of detritus. This has to be tackled in the time of climate change. And you have to also consider that as it is a mangrove area, the release of mangrove leachers can affect the pH of the water in the time of heavy rainfall event, high intensity rainfall event by leachers degeneration. Though the freshwater mixing will be there, but gradually the pH has to be monitored whether it is increasing, because there is a possibility of that kind of relationship, because in Sundarbans in West Bengal, we are observing the estuaries are behaving as carbon emitters, whereas the mangrove soils are actually able to sequester much more carbon than we are expecting, particularly in the winter months. So I think, so with this continuous monitoring, preparedness for the disaster, which are either fast onset kind and the slow onset kind, like the temperature change, and with the coordinated effort that NICRA and other national agencies are taking, but we have to learn from the practices of the different areas of, say, active reef systems and marine fisheries, where everywhere the fisheries are getting affected due to coral bleaching. So I think the CMFRI and others are taking into consideration that, and we'll be happy if some coordinated effort with the institutes are taken, as this project was done on behalf of Government of India GST Climate Change Adaptation Program. So we are happy to present our some findings from the coral reefs of Andaman to this August audience. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hazra. And it is a very exciting presentation, and listening to the impact of climate change on the marine fisheries. And you have clearly established a strong relationship between coral bleach and fish catch, and also with the tsunami. And your future projection of bleaching event under climate change scenarios will actually help tackling this kind of events, and also adaptation, planning adaptation strategies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Dr. Manabha Sivakumar. Dr. Sivakumar was Director, Climate Prediction and Adaptation Branch, World Meteorological Organization, Geneva. And he will present on management of climate change and natural disaster impacts in agriculture.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Sivakumar, the floor is yours.
Yeah, you can see the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Yes, I can see, but could you kindly put it in the presentation mode? Clicking on the right-hand side.
Sorry?
Yeah, it is not in the presentation. Yeah, now it is. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, in my presentation, what I would like to do is to mainly talk about the climate change current trends, the future projections, talk about natural disasters, and what are the impacts of climate change and natural disasters on agriculture, and how can we promote sustainable agriculture, and I'll finally give some conclusions. So first, what I would like to say is the world population is what is causing climate change. 12,000 years ago, the population in the world is 10 million. And in the 1950, from 10 million, it came to 2.53 billions. In 2020, it is 7.79 billions. And by 2100, the population is expected to be 11.21 billions. Now, IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in their 5th assessment report, they said because of this huge population increase and the various activities undertaken by the human beings, the warming of climate system is unequivocal. The human influence on climate system is very clear. So in the last 3 decades, we have seen highly warming Earth surface, and the continued emission of greenhouse gases is going to cause further warming. Now, what I would like to see, you can see this graph here, the greenhouse gas emissions between 2000 and 2010. From 1970 to about 2000, it was only 1.3% per year. But then from 2000 onwards, you can see that it has gone enormously increased. And you can see at the bottom, the carbon dioxide fossil fuel industrial process. And above that, the red one is carbon dioxide from land use. And the light blue one is methane, and the dark blue one is nitrous oxide. So you can see all these greenhouse gases, the emissions have been very increasing. And here is some statistics about carbon dioxide. From free industrial value of 280 parts per million, in 2019, it came to 410.5 parts per million. And this exceeds by far the natural range over the last 650,000 years. So you can see how much of carbon dioxide emissions we have been causing these days. And the growth rate is between 2 to 3 parts per million per year in the last 10 years. And that is much larger than what it has been from the beginning of the continuous atmospheric measurements. And the carbon dioxide emissions increased from an average of 6.4 gigatons per carbon to 36 gigatons of carbon in 2010. So methane and nitrous oxide details are here. In the case of methane, from the pre-industrial value of 750 parts per billion, in early 1990s, it came to 1,732 parts per billion, and then it increased much more by 2019. The atmospheric concentration of methane exceeds by far the natural range of 650,000 years. And the nitrous oxide concentration also increased from the pre-industrial value to 332 parts per billion in 2019. And you can see here, because of this increase in natural gases, the enormous increase in the global mean temperature, various models are here, but all models are showing that very clearly there is an enormous increase in the mean temperature. From 1850 to 1900, mean temperature now is 1.2 plus minus 0.01 degrees centigrade. So oceans, because of this, oceans are absorbing a lot of, Oceans are absorbing a lot of heat from the climate change. And you can see here the ocean heat in the various depths from the bottom to the top. You can see that enormous increase in the ocean heat. And that is what is also causing the enormous increase in the ocean level. And the climate projections for the future show that the temperature increase is during the last 100 years is only about 0.8 degrees centigrade. But then as we go forward, you can see enormous increase here. The dark red and light red and dark blue, light blue, dark brown, light brown, you can see the enormous increase is projected in future. So the continuous emissions of greenhouse gases will cause further warming and changes in the climate system. Oceans will continue to warm. The mean sea level will also increase. It is very likely that the Arctic Sea ice cover will continue to shrink. And because of this, now we have the food and water shortages. There is an increased displacement of people moving from villages to towns and so on, increased poverty and coastal flooding. So natural disasters, you can see here throughout human history, natural disasters played a major role in the economic development and survival of humanity. The economic cost associated with natural disasters increased 14-fold since 1950s. For example, the deaths from 1950s increased 50% each decade, whereas the corresponding population growth was onwards by 20%. Worldwide annual economic costs related to natural disasters are estimated about $50 to $100 billion. By 2050, it is predicted that 100,000 lives will be lost each year to natural disasters, and the global cost could top $300 billion. And you can see enormous increase as opposed to what it is currently. And here are some statistics of the weather-related loss events. The bottom green is meteorological events, which is tropical cyclone, extratropical storm, convective storm, and so on. The above one is, blue one is hydrological events like floods and mass movement. And the above one is, in brown is the climatological events like extreme temperature, drought, and so on. So you can see that from 1980 to 2020, there's an enormous increase in these weather-related loss events. And here is the amount of loss that is shown from 1980 to 2019. The bottom one is in blue, where it is the insured losses. For example, developed countries have insurance, so there the insured losses are in blue. But then the overall losses are in green, and overall losses are much more than the insured losses. So this is what is causing a major problem with natural disasters. And here are relevant weather-related loss events worldwide from 1980 to 2019. There were 17,410 events. The overall losses were $4,238 billion. And the fatalities are 896,467. And the insured losses, as I also showed in the last graph, insured losses are much lower than the overall losses. And as I mentioned earlier, the meteorological events are in green, the hydrological events are in blue, and the climatological events are in brown. And you could see here, the major issue is mainly meteorological events. So climate change disasters in 2020, there are a record number of hurricanes, wildfires, and floods. These are exacerbated by climate change in 2020, and they caused $210 billion in damage. The 6 costliest disasters of 2020 occurred in the United States, topped by Hurricane Laura's devastation, which caused $13 billion damage after hitting Louisiana in August. One major problem the report revealed is the lack of insurance coverage for disasters in developing countries. This is the major problem in developing countries. Without the insurance coverage for disasters, the poorest of the poor people are really facing enormous problems. The overall disaster losses in Asia total $67 billion. And you could see of this only $3 billion is insured. That means $63 billion is uninsured loss. And these kind of extreme events are impacting agriculture, as you could see here in these figures. There are many due to direct weather and climate effects like droughts, flash floods, ultimate rains, and so on. And the one report from the FAO, IFAD, and the World Food Program in 2015 showed that between 2003 and 2013, these natural hazards and disasters affected more than 1.9 billion people and resulted in $500 million in damage. And the impacts of these extremes in agriculture, of course, is not only on crops, but also on livestock, fisheries, and forests. They absorb 22% of the economic impact caused by the medium and large-scale natural hazards and disasters in developing countries. The agricultural impacts from the disasters include alteration of ecosystems, contamination of water bodies, loss of harvest or livestock, increased susceptibility to disease, destruction of irrigation systems and other agricultural infrastructure. So these impacts can have long-lasting effects on agricultural production, including crops, forest growth, and arable lands. How can we promote then the sustainable agriculture? In September 2015, the 193 member states of the United Nations endorsed a universal agenda entitled Transforming the World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And in this there are 17 sustainable development goals. The sustainable development goals will mainly take bold and transformative steps which are urgently needed to shift the world towards sustainable and resilient path. With the explicit aim to leave no one behind, the Sustainable Development Goals provide promising basis for addressing inclusive growth, shared prosperity, and multidimensional equalities. And here are how we can address climate change and natural disasters through these sustainable development policies. There are, out of the 17 sustainable development goals, there are 4 which address the issues of climate change, natural disasters, and sustainable agriculture. So sustainable development goal number 13 addresses the issue of combating climate change impacts. And other sustainable development goals like goal 2, goal 6, and goal 15, it is very important to implement climate change mitigation adaptation strategies. And here is the figure on these goals. The goal number 2, as I showed on the left side, is mainly to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Goal 6 is how can we ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation. And as I mentioned, goal 13 is mainly combating climate change and combating its impacts. And goal 15 is how we can really promote sustainable use of the ecosystems, the forests, combat desertification, and so on. So here are some climate change adaptation strategies. And of course, these are all a long list of adaptation strategies, starting from changing planting dates, planting different varieties, developing alternative crops, developing drought and heat resistant varieties, intercropping, sustainable fertilizer and tillage practices, crops residue and weed management, more use of water harvesting techniques, better pest and disease control for crops, and implementing new or improved existing irrigation systems. In terms of livestock management, of course, we have to provide housing and shade, change to heat-tolerant breeds, change in the stocking rate, alternate grazing, and rotation of pastures. And more use of agroforestry practices is very important. And it is very important also to have improved forest fire management through various strategies that are listed there. And the development of early warning systems and protection measures for natural disasters is very, very important. Now, in terms of the conclusions here, now you can see that all the major international agreements to which the almost all countries are now committed, they emphasize that countries should implement policies aimed at climate change, impacting natural disasters, and provide greater sustainability for agriculture sector. And as I mentioned earlier, priority should be given to implementation of the various sustainable development goals so that we can maximize the synergies between adaptation, mitigation, food production, and sustainable development. We have to place emphasis on the high-level thinking on development pathways for effective natural resource management and sustainable agriculture. Thank you very much. Hello.
Dr. Shiva Kumar, you have clearly demonstrated greenhouse gas emission and increase in global mean temperature. And also you highlighted on absorption of heat by the oceans. And the damages from extreme weather events, both insured and non-insured, are actually increasing in a nonlinear rate. And developing countries are most vulnerable because of less coverage from insurance. And you also highlighted on many important adaptation measures. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Mr. Ajoy Dikshit. And he was former director, executive director of Institute for Social and Environmental Transition, ISET, Nepal. And Mr. Dikshit will present on water challenges, need holistic approach, and conservation. Mr. Dixit, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see me? Can you hear me, Dr. Mirza?
Yes, I can see you and I can also hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. And good morning to you. And then good evening to all the esteemed, respected participants from South Asia. I'm indeed very, very pleased to be part of this conversation. It has been an absolute learning experience because, I come from a landlocked country. So therefore, my starting point really is not the kind of, coastal ecosystem or coastal challenges, but then the presentation by the earlier speakers, the Dr. Manava, including earlier presenters who talked about the mangrove challenges, the excellent work that they have done in the piloting, even though it seems to me it's kind of a piloting, the innovations on agriculture, ecosystem services, value, the resilience agriculture, clearly the mitigation co-benefits. Some of these practices, I think, has lots of resonance even in other parts, perhaps not the technology per se, but the processes and how you kind of do it. And clearly, there is a need for much more conversation, much more dialogue in kind of, getting the science into policy, then policy into practices, and then of course from science to policy. I'll talk about that a little later, but then, that's my starting point. And then as we say, we are a landlocked country, so we think what, climate change does is to increase the sea level rise. And of course, that's going to lead to, number one, direct displacement of population living along the coast. And these happen to be one of the most perhaps vulnerable population, who depend on a very specific kind of ecosystem that sustains their livelihood and life. And from my perspective, maybe, it's a bit of a limited perspective, but these downstream realities, these downstream ecosystem has not been perhaps part of the larger water development, kind of an approach. We've already, if you look at some of the narratives, we all tend to think that all the water that is flowing into the sea is a kind of a waste, without realizing that there is this huge ecosystem and people who depend on that ecosystem for this, continuous flow of flux from upstream. Now, of course, as I said, the displacement is something that we read about, we listen to, as the rate of temperature rise goes up, or the emission that goes up, as the earlier speaker talked about, the extent of sea level rise is going to go up because both the North Pole and the South Pole are seeing much higher rate of depletion of ice and snow. And then, of course, I come from the third pole region, the Himalaya region where, we live. And it's also seeing snow and ice depletion at a very, very alarming rate, particularly, the temperature rise. If you refer to some of the recent findings, some of the research assessments, they do talk about, if the temperature rise within 2100, it can be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level. Then the glacier, perhaps 2/3 of the glacier would be 1/3 would go. But then if it's more than 2 degrees Celsius, of course, then the 2/3 glacier be degraded, gone. And of course, glacier is only one part of the story. Glacier melt also leads to increase in glacier lakes, and the threat of glacier lakes being breached. We saw Perhaps not exactly this example of glacial breach in 2021, 7th February. It's more caused by a landslide, coming from the, high mountain range in Uttarakhand, which led to massive devastation in the Chamoli area. Similar event had happened in Nepal in 2012, May, in the upper reaches of Seti River. Similar event, almost similar, large chunk of sort of landslide from a very high slope. Annapurna range came down, then blocked the Seti River, and when the thing breached, it just brought this huge form of disaster that led to death, destruction in the downstream. Now, clearly, some of the other colleagues also have highlighted things like, exacerbated floods, flash floods, examples of drought, not just drought, but also flash droughts, into a water landscape or a waterscape which is already stressed. Extreme rainfall events, increasing humidity, depleting snow and ice systems, and of course, glacial lake outburst floods. And then it also leads to then the rapid loss of natural ecosystem and biodiversity, and then the services that these ecosystems generate, and then the population most marginalized and on the sort of, social and economic margins, who depending on these systems being directly affected. So clearly these challenges are not something unique. These challenges have been also part of the larger development problem that we see. Again, if I remember some of my earlier work on the transboundary water, particularly in relation to challenges in Ganga Basin, we do talk about salt water increasing, and subsequently the works that we did in coastal areas of Gujarat and Tamil Nadu in the late 90s and early 2000s, when we worked with some of the coastal communities, looking at things like climate change adaptation. The salt water, seawater rise is not just leading to direct displacement, but it's also leading to saltwater intrusion, salinity increase in the water sources, fresh water sources along those coastal areas, and then of course that interference or that interlinkage having different kind of impact. Clearly, then if we go back to our own sort of, again, the earlier speaker talked about the sustainable development goals. If you look at the statistics on a sort of a bit of a larger scale, we still have, 134, 135 million people in South Asia. I'm just not talking about India, Bangladesh, other countries as well, where people still don't have access to good quality drinking water services. So sanitation similarly much behind. Children still continue to have high, mortality rate due to various waterborne diseases. And of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the fragility of, the public health system of South Asia, became very evident. People didn't have fresh water or clean water to wash hands. People didn't have jobs. And when the jobs in cities closed due to this lockdown, and then of course we had this massive sort of, migrants coming back to their homes. And then that exposed the kind of, deeper challenge that we all in South Asia face. Of course, over the last 200 years, we have had stories of, building infrastructure, we build dams, we build barrages, we build irrigation systems. We have developed skill set, perhaps, and technology in implementing these projects. But what has not happened simultaneously, I would argue, is that our management, perhaps, in this infrastructure has not been up to mark. inefficiency is very high. Water also suffers from what we call ecological challenges, and we also have problem of inequity. So you have three challenges: challenge of inefficiency, challenge of equity, and challenge of ecology. If you look at our rivers, the rivers are polluted, rivers where we dump untreated solid and liquid wastes. Of course, they lower groundwater as well as the surface water quality. It's just not the disposal of untreated solid and liquid waste into the river. It's also fragmentation of rivers. Rivers have been fragmented by various interventions. Urbanization, for example, urbanization has been perhaps mostly misgoverned. Instead of, instead of building away from rivers, we have gone and intervened in rivers, canalized them, made them shorter, made them narrower. So therefore, when you have even a higher rainfall event, a more extreme rainfall event, a flood, we should have flown away. Now it remains as an inundated flood for more than 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, 7 weeks, 10 weeks, 3, 4 months. So clearly there is a mismatch between how the idea of urban development has progressed and how we kind of looked at water remains a challenge. So clearly, as some of the participants or the presenters earlier highlighted, it's a vast landscape. It's a vast landscape, diverse ecosystem which offers both opportunities as well as challenges. And then of course these ecosystems have faced different kind of challenges now. These ecosystems do not remain what they were 50 years ago. The interventions have changed it. And these interventions have kind of changed the dynamics among population who depend on these ecosystems. And then climate change acts as a new stress level. Some of the earlier presenters did highlight the fact that the temperature is going up. The temperature rise is more monotonic. If you look at the model results, they say temperature is going up. If you look at the historical records, they also demonstrate or tell us that the daytime and the nighttime temperature are going up. The number of hotter days is increasing. If you look at rainfall, on the other hand, models are not that certain. Different models give different predictions, different scenarios. I just came back from visiting some of the hill districts in around Kathmandu over the last four days. Of course, we have 4 months, 4 seasons in a year. We have monsoon, post-monsoon, winter, and pre-monsoon, rainfall seasons. And this particular year, while we had a very wet monsoon and very extreme monsoon that had massive landslides in Nepali hills, this time, the pre-monsoon season has been pretty dry. We have had more examples of forest fires. If we go to hills of Nepal, we find out that the springs are depleting at a very fast rate. When the springs deplete, it has direct consequences in drinking water because people, particularly women, depend on water and hauling that water into their homes and managing. So therefore, these multiplicities of challenges that we see. And then let me also highlight one point. As I said in the beginning, in Nepal, we think, because of we being landlocked, the sea level rise perhaps would not impact us directly. But in 2014, Eastern India, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, and that part faced Hudhud storm. Now, the impact of influence of Hudhud storm also inland into Nepal and into the high Himalayan region of Annapurna range. And this was when the tourist season had just begun. And of course, we are not prepared for this particular, disaster, particular natural hazard. And then, of course, when it hit the tourist season, we had unprecedented snowfall in the higher region, and of course, it led to unfortunate death of tourists in those high Himalayan region, particularly on the walking trails. So therefore, everything is connected with everything else. It's not that something happens somewhere and we can remain totally isolated. In fact, we have oceans, and then we have temperature rise, and then oceans you have evaporation, and that forms the cloud. That clouds moves inward, and then of course that brings in monsoon, the rain, and then rain gives us rivers flow, and then the flow go out, and then this whole sort of large, massive, what do you call, cycle, from ocean to sky to land to river back to ocean continues. So therefore, there is this clear interconnection between the upland, midland, and the lowland, the coastal areas. So therefore, so in this scheme of things, given the multiplicities of problem, given our own historical context, given the challenges that we already face, the sort of additional rain or additional challenge that climate change poses, how do we move forward? How do we kind of tackle this complexity? And we're not talking about one family. We're talking about millions of individuals, millions of families. The scale is very, very high. So how do you kind of scale up or replicate some of these wonderful examples that some of the presenters talked about earlier in the session? How do you kind of learn from these practices? What does it mean for, say, a more resilient agriculture practice in Tarai hills and high Himalayas of Nepal or other parts of South Asia? What does it mean? How do you learn from it? So clearly, let me just, as I look at these challenges, how do we bring this dialogue? Clearly we have a approach of top-down approaches of planning and design. How do we match up with these bottom-up approaches? How do you kind of decide between various trade-offs, various societal needs? Some of the participants, some of the presenters did talk about sharing of data and information. Clearly, information is very central. Data sharing is important because the more access to evidence we have, the better perhaps our solutions and our actions are. And what does big data in this current era mean in policy making? How do you kind of, as I said right in the beginning, how does this science lessons or experimentation and the scientific innovations that we have, how do we translate into policy? And then from policies into people, and then from perhaps into the political sector. And then of course, there have been a kind of a paradigm of, working on sectoral silos. We work on drinking water, hydropower, irrigation, forestry, agriculture, working in their own sectoral silos. Now, how do you kind of improve conversation around these different silos? What does these growing risks mean? Somebody talked about insurance. Yes, insurance is important, but the insurance is a very kind of evolving perhaps a sector in at least in Nepal. Clearly there are economic imperatives, but there are also non-economic values of some of these ecosystem services, things like culture. Coming World Water Day 2021, I think May 22, the theme this time is valuing water, different value of water. So what does these different values of water, when you look at from these different perspectives? So clearly, these are challenges, challenges to improve efficiency, challenges to, minimize ecological footprints, challenges to improve social equity. Clearly, there is no one silver bullet solution that would allow us to meet these challenges. Clearly, we have to do many, many things. We have the state as a major actor. We have the community, which are the recipient of the services. We have the private sector, which has its own imperatives and interests. And then we have the scientific community who have been practicing innovations and experimenting and identifying various ways of sort of dealing with these various type of stresses. So how does this all come together? Who can bring this all together? Clearly, I would argue, there is no one individual or one entity that can bring these together. Clearly, we need a much greater societal level conversation, not just about the development challenge, also about climate change. Climate change is a development and a political challenge. We need to talk with perhaps farmers. We need to talk with scientists. We need to talk with novelists. We need to talk with actors. We need to talk with many other individuals who would be directly impacted by these changes. This is imperative because the scale of problem is so humongous. So to that end, I have been working in the water sector in South Asia over the last, more than 40 years. Worked on different kind of issues, done work, but at this point in time in my career, I've been focusing on trying to kind of, you function as an intercollutor, getting these different individual sectors talk to each other, in a much more constructive dialogue and conversation. So we have started this platform called SONAS, South Asia Nadi Sambad, where we get into conversation with, colleagues in South Asia. I've been partnering with Dr. Mirza. He's been a colleague over the last 40 years. I've been talking with friends like Professor Jayanta Bandyopadhyay, Dr. Dinesh Kumar Mishra, many other colleagues with him. We have worked in the past to use this platform as perhaps one of a very tiny efforts in getting this constructive conversation forward. And hopefully I will circulate the website to the esteemed panelists and presenters of this conversation, this conference, and hopefully in your free time, if you can take a look at this and then to also share your thoughts and reflection, and be most welcome. So Dr. Mirza, this is broadly some reflection I wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dixit. You highlighted on many issues, actually cross-cutting issues, climate change and ecosystem and human livelihood, etc. And also you highlighted the importance of maintaining the highland lowland ecosystem management, and our interaction with is very crucial with the coastal ecosystem. And it is not only important for the coastal regions, also it is important for the highland landlocked countries like Nepal. What is happening in the coast, it will ultimately affect the highland ecosystem and livelihood of the people. And you also highlighted on actually a serious dialogue on all these cross-cutting issues, their relationship with the dynamics of development and human population. So thank you very much, and for your very enlightening presentation. And once again, and thank you, and have a safe and healthy time.
Thank you, Dr. Mirza and Dr. Sen, for the opportunity. I look forward to more conversations and questions if we have as we go on. So let me.
Our next presenter is Professor Rex Cruz. Is the Director of Forestry Program, College of Forestry and Natural Resources, University of Philippines, Laguna, the Philippines. And who will make presentation on adaptation disaster risk reduction in the coastal municipalities of Manila Bay. Is Dr. Cruz here?
It looks he is not available in that list. I could not able to recognize him.
Yeah, I also don't see him in the list of participants. And hello.
I was attending some conference. उसमें आपका नाम लिया गया था, क्या बात है? C.S. Srinivasa Rao took your name.
हाँ उसमें वो कुछ
हाँ।
दिया था, slide sheet दिया था उसमें. Can I move
Director के
to
बोल
the
पा
next presenter?
Director
Ghulam
के- there was
Rabbani,
an issue.
is he available?
There was an issue.
अरे बाप रे.
हाँ. Because
Hello?
headquarters में चल रहा है कुछ.
Huh?
He has been using Krida with for representing in many conferences. People are giving information without director's approval.
Someone is talking. Is Dr. Rabbani is available? Yeah, I don't see him either in the list of panelists. So, we move to Dr.
Yes, sir.
Namdev Mashkar.
Hi, yes, sir. Hello.
Hello.
I am audible, sir. I am
Yes,
audible.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you are. Yes, you are.
Can I share, sir, screen? PPT? Can I?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes.
Yes,
And Dr. Mashkar will present on tuber crops in Konkan, an alternative crops for climate smart, sustainable, economical, viable, and nutritionally rich.
shall I start, sir?
And yes, you have got 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Okay, sir. Good evening to everybody. Welcome to this ISCA webinar. Sir, myself, Dr. Mashkar, working as a junior agronomist in All India Coordinated Research Program, Integrated Farming System at Regional Agriculture Research Station, Kardat. Previously, I was working as a principal investigator in All India Coordinated Research Project on tuber crops. So this is my previous work. So my presentation is on tuber crops in Konkan, an alternative crop for climate smart, sustainable, economically viable, and nutritionally rich. Sir, in my presentation, this is firstly I introduce introduction, then climate smart, how these tuber crops are climate smart crops, sustainable productions, and how it is economically viable, nutritionally rich, and lastly is the conclusion. So this Konkan region is actually the narrow strip in between the Arabian Sea and the Sahyadri ranges. And this is a coastal belt of Maharashtra, having 720 kilometers of the sea coast. Total geographical area is 29.37 lakhs. And the operation land holding is very less, 1.82 hectare. In this region, there are two cropping systems. One is a rice-based cropping system in North Konkan coastal zone, and one is the horticulture-based cropping system in South Konkan coastal zone. Total climate is warm and humid, and rainfall is more than 2,500. So these are major tuber crops seen grown by the farmers in Konkan region. Cassava, sweet potato. These are the different yam species: Dioscorea alata, Dioscorea esculenta, Dioscorea bulbifera. These are some aroid species also grown by different farmers in horticulture-based cropping system, as well as the zone cropping systems, elephant foot yam, Xanthosoma, as well as the Colocasia. So what is the status of the tuber crops? Everybody knows that tuber crops hold a premium position among the food crops, and these are the important group of actually horticulture crops, but it is the important group after the cereals and pulses, and it constitutes either the staple or subsidiary food, and more than 20% of the world population, they are feeding these tuber crops. But unfortunately, in India, there are very less staple food crops of only the tribal peoples, but these crops also having the industrial value, some animal feeds also there, some medicinal properties are there. In Maharashtra also, mostly the farmers are grown in Konkan region. These crops are grown in 0.51 lakh hectares and with the production of 14 lakh tons. The farmer in Konkan region, there are different tuber crops grown by the farmers in mainly homestead. So why tuber crops are important? Because nowadays every the crops which are grown above the ground or above the soil, these are climate due to the climatic variation or abrupt weather condition. Most of the main produce of these crops are farmers are lost. But these tuber crops having the large potential productivity or large potentiality, more than 15 tons of biological efficiency of the tuber crops. So these are the tuber crops are mainly the climate resilient crop, and the cultivation cost is also very low. So these are the very highly remunerative or most profitable of the rather than the other crops. These are also withstand with the adverse weather conditions, as well as every tuber crop having different medicinal as well as nutritive value. So these crops don't have any the high quality of the soil, but even the marginal soil, they are also giving the very good yield. As well as these crops grown by the sole crops, as well as we can grow by the intercropping system also. And very minimum risk threats, less pest population or disease problem. So all these tuber crops, these are the tolerant to drought, shade. So that's why we are calling these are the crops for the adversity or the climate resilient crops. So first I am going that tropical tuber crops, these are the climate resilient. So what is the which crops that are withstand for the extreme events of these climate vagaries? So cassava, it is a very drought resistant crop. Even though 3 months there are no any irrigation water, then these crops can grow as well as produce better tuber yields. So sweet potato, everybody knows that in Bengal famine, there are only the sweet potato is remains. Yam species, these are also the hardy crops. All these crops are actually the temperate tropical crops. So these are a positive response to increase the as the increase of the temperature. This productivity of these crops are increases. Some crops in arid crops, especially elephant Photium, Xanthosoma, these crops are the shade-loving crops as well as suitable for the intercropping systems. So second, regarding the tuber crops, we think the malnutrition problem is day by day increasing in especially in Eastern Asia as well as African countries. So even the malnutrition percent of this malnutrition problem is day by day decreasing, but still these are specifically seen in the Asian as well as African countries. So these tuber crops having various different nutrient capacities. Most of the vitamins A, B, C, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, folate, as well as these are the energy rich crops. Actually, this provides the 6% of the world dietary energy and good source of the dietary fibers. So these crops also fetching different minerals, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, iron. So these crops also help in the nutrition security problems. So these are the some nutrition composition of the tuber crops. Actually, these are the energy rich crops. So the carbohydrate percent is more. But also dietary fiber is also more, different types of the minerals as well as vitamins in different types of the tuber crops. These are some chart I have given here. So we are only taking this in our dietary food. Actually, Indian Council of Medical Research that are giving one in our daily diet. There should be 100 grams of tuber crops in our daily diet. But we are taking only at the time of fast or any occasional, because due to only these tuber crops are only eating by the boiled as well as roasted. But if we are prepare some different value-added products, these products in our center we have different products, novel products we have prepared. Some are the some traditional products as well as some products. These are prepared by bakery products, and we are taking different demonstrations as well as some for the women self-help groups. We are taking these demonstrations at different locations in Ratnagiri districts, Raigad districts, some Sindhurga districts, as well as some Thane districts. So these are only due to in our daily diet how we can take these novel products in our daily diet. One National Tuber Food Festival arranged at Trivandrum, Kerala, and we have taking this participation in our center. So in that our center has prepared more than 30 different products. This is one of the photographs. This is also the traditional dishes, different types of the traditional dishes prepared from the sweet potato. These are from the cassava traditional dishes. These are the greater yams. In some of the elephant foot yam, this is one of the important tuber crops. So this is some minor tuber crops. So the rather than the our daily diet, some industry value is also there. In specifically cassava, sweet potato, the starch, as well as sago, wafers, different types of these noodles, papads we can prepare. Other than the industrial products, we can prepare the biopesticides as well as animal feed is one of the important for this industry purpose. So this is the some varieties that are nutritionally rich as well as some vitamin rich variety. Especially this sweet potato variety is Kamala Sundari, developed by from this BCKV Kalyani, and our university has recommended this for this Konkan region. This is our own variety, Konkan Ashwini. This is one of first national variety of aerial yam. This aerial bulb and this tuber is also yellowish in color, and so the vitamin rich in more than that. So we have prepared these different dishes from this aerial yam also. Why it is called as economical viable? From the different experiments we have conducted at tuber crop research station Vakavli near Dapoli, Ratnagiri. So on the basis of different experiments, we have got the yield of different tuber crops more than 20 tons per hectare. And as we have looked at this net returns, so from 71,000 to 3,66,000. So it is not. It is much more than the other vegetables or other cereal or pulses crops. So this is really the economically beneficial for these farmers. Some experiments or recommendations we have given for the farmers of this Konkan region. So, this is for the cassava crops, intercropping with the dhencha. These different varieties we have given for the farmers. Some are the released, some are the recommended, as well as some production technology also we have recommended for the farmers. Some pest control or some protection, plant protection measures we have also recommended for the farmers. So these are the general economics of these different tuber crops grown in our regions. Lastly, the crop diversification is most important, because these crops not only taken as a sole crop, but as we take the intercrop in the different horticulture-based cropping system. These crops also grown in different pulses or oilseed also, because in Konkan region the horticulture is the major crops specially identified for mango, cashew. These are the some dryland crops, as well as coconut, areca nut, banana, sapota. These are some irrigated crops. So every crops we can take as an intercrop in tuber crops in the main orchard or orchard crops or some horticulture based crops cropping system. In rice based cropping system, it is also we can take this crop as a after taking the rice, kharif rice. In Rabi season, we can take this cassava, elephant foot yam, also some sweet potato. So these are some experiments we have taken here at Areca Nut Research Station, Srivardhan. We are giving one recommendation for this Areca Nut based cropping systems. Different we have taken these different tuber crops as well as some spice crops, and on the basis of this, we are recommended the elephant foot yam as an intercrop in the Areca Nut cropping system. These are the some economic points. So the net returns of this elephant foot yam is more than 1,293 per day. So these are the some economic graphical representation. In coconut cropping system, we can also taking at different ages of this coconut plants. So at the early stages, we can take the cassava, elephant foot yam, yams at 8 to 25 years age of the coconut palm. We can take the different crops, and after fully matured or fully developed of the canopy, we can take these different shade-loving tuber crops. So these are the some in different our research stations. Coconut research station at Bhate, we can recommended this arrowroot coconut cropping systems. At Thane district, coconut Jantosama, it is a very popular cropping system in our regions. This is the elephant foot yam coconut cropping systems. These are the banana elephant foot yam cropping systems taken by different farmers. All these are the recommended by our university by taking the different experiments at different research stations.
You have 1 minute, please.
Okay, sir. So these are some photographs in mango orchards, in cashew orchards. We can taking different experiments, and on the basis of this, we are recommended to the farmers to take the tuber crops as an intercrop. So at the last, I have concluded that tuber crops sustain their productivity under changing climatic conditions on the basis of the experimental evidences that tuber crops are very economically viable, and tuber crops are the climate resilient crops and seems to be the future crops. And these crops play an important role in future, that food security, nutrition security, as well as livelihood security. In lastly, we have got the one Best Center Award in 2016 at BCQE Kalyani, West Bengal. So thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you very much for your very important presentation, Dr. Maskar. And we actually learned a lot about these tuber crops from your presentation. They are climate resilient, and probably they will be adopted extensively in our region in the future as an adaptation and coping mechanism. And thank you very much. And our next presenter is.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Just give me a second. Dr. Burman?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Dr.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, I can see you. Dr. Burman from ICAR, Central Research
Yes,
Institute for Jute and Allied Fibers in Barakpur, West Bengal. And he will make a presentation on trend analysis of rainfall and temperature of coastal districts of West Bengal for computing irrigation water requirement of jute crop using crop pot model. Dr. Burman, the floor is yours. You will get 10 minutes to make your case.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. My slide is already visible, sir?
Yes, but could you kindly click on the presentation mode? Yes. Yes, sir. Yeah, very good.
It is in presentation. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Respected chair, respected co-chair, and the distinguished Myself, Dr. G. Burman. I am senior scientist in ICAR Central Research Institute for Jute and Allied Fibers. Today, my topic is trend analysis of rainfall and temperature of coastal districts of West Bengal for computing irrigation water requirement of jute and allied jute crop using crop work model. Most of them you know that jute is a bast fiber crop used as a mainly fibers, as well as it is also used as a vegetable in a tender stage. So jute is a very important crop as a carbon harvesting crop, as well as for using as a fiber. And it is important for India because India is the highest jute producing country in the world. And in the India, West Bengal is the highest contributing states. That is 70% of the jute produced in West Bengal region. This is the eastern state of India. So with this topic and the null hypothesis of my research is no irrigation is required for jute cultivation in coastal districts of West Bengal. In West Bengal, there's a three districts covers the coastal region, and whether the irrigation is required or not for the jute cultivation, that is the our null hypothesis. But in this topic, the expected output required is a spatial and temporal variability analysis to adapt to see the different agronomic management practices suitable to different jute growing areas. Then irrigation scheduling, if it is required, then what is the irrigation scheduling for the jute crop using this crop work model. And obviously the sustainable jute cultivation because of the for fiber and nutrient security. As I mentioned already, the bast fiber crop is a natural biodegradable fiber crop and the nutrient as it is used as a vegetable crop, so it supplies the nutrients supplements to the people, especially in the hot summer scorchy region, and it has a medicinal value which has been proved by many researchers. So my material and methods of our research is the spatial, we have taken the rainfall temperature, maximum minimum temperature data of a spatial region in the district level, then temporal resolutions of monthly, and the period is 102 years since 1901 to 2002. The data source is India portal. So we have applied the Mann-Kendall test, sense slope analysis, then obviously then the crop work modeling by feeding different input rainfall, and then temperature, then other parameters I will come to later. So if we see the pictures of the three districts of the West Bengal, who is having the highest jute producing areas in the India. So North 24 Parganas, South 24 Parganas, and Medinipur. Generally, jute grows during a 102 days period, extending from the late second fortnight of March to July. So the rainfall, monthly total rainfall distribution pattern is like this. This graph shows the March is below 50 mm rainfall. Then April is almost 50 mm rainfall. Then May it is slightly higher, 50% higher. That is 100 mm rainfall. And the June and July is when the monsoon starts. Then June and July having the higher rainfall in those districts. Obviously, the North 24 Parganas is having the higher rainfall in all the months. So if we see the trend analysis in district wise, then March rainfall is in decreasing trend. Almost in 40 to 50% rainfall has been reduced. But the March temperature, that is maximum and minimum, both the temperature trend in three coastal districts of West Bengal is also in but increasing trend, that is at the rate of 0.004 degrees centigrade per year, and for minimum 0.006 degrees centigrade temperature. But April rainfall is in increasing trend. March rainfall is in decreasing trend, April rainfall in increasing trend, May rainfall in decreasing trend again. But June, July, and August rainfall in increasing trend. So where is the challenge? I will come to the latter for the jute cultivation, actually in the coastal districts. In a distribution pattern, we can see it is in, we have done the all, without the, in addition to the coastal districts, the other districts of the West Bengal. This is the West Bengal map. And in West Bengal, there is a 6 agroclimatic regions clearly shows, and the coastal regions is having the 3 North 24 Parganas, Purbo Medinipur, and North 24 districts. And also in a temperature pattern, we can see the coastal districts, 3 districts is having the maximum temperature is somewhat lower, is 26 to 27 degree in South 24 Parganas, but in the other 29 to 30. But in the minimum temperature, it is also not very high. This is in a lower side in all over the West Bengal if we see in a pan wise. Then if we see the climatic water balance for the jute life cycle, then we can see the clear distinct pattern of clear 2 distinct phases of the jute life cycle. In the first 60 days, it is in the deficit rainfall pattern, but in the second phase of the 60 days, it is in surplus rain. In first 60 days, it is 150 millimeter rainfall in deficit, but in the second phase, it is 300 millimeter rainfall is in surplus. So in clear picture, in the first phase, jute requires the irrigation because it's low soil moisture due to the low rainfall. But in the second phase, the water stagnation is there, which is deteriorate the jute production and the quality of the jute fiber. And for the jute production, the optimum temperature range in Tmax is 32 to 35, Tmin is 24 to 26 degrees centigrade, relative humidity 50 to 94 percentage in relative humidity. But irrigation requirement, I will come to later, it is coming to the 450 to 550 millimeter. And not only the climatic data analysis, we have experiment in the field condition and as a pot culture method also. So clearly it shows that soil moisture when deteriorates during the March, April, and May, where it is the scorched sun and summer season, without irrigation, the soil moisture reaches to the 5% at the below level. And when the mortality rate of the jute comes to computed as a 15 to 20%, and therefore the yield reduction is 20 to 25%. So in the first 60 days, when April, May, this is a scorchy summer season when rain is not sufficient, rain is deficient at least 150 millimeter, jute production is reduced by 20 to 25% jute fiber production. So it is clearly shows our condition is we have to irrigate the jute. That's why we computed how much irrigation and when to irrigate the jute crop in a all over this coastal region, coastal districts. We have compiled the data and district-wise analysis. There is not much variability in the 3 districts, but in a combined way, we have analyzed and this April, May, June, and July, these 4 months of the jute season, there is a clear picture of getting this irrigation requirement. This is the feeding of this data, maximum temperature, humidity, wind, sun hours, then radiation requirement, and ET0, it is the how much it is coming. Then again, this is the actual irrigation we have calculated or computed by the CropWatt model. Then KC value, we have already done some experiments. We are feeding this data, crop coefficient values, and we have calculated the irrigation requirement of the jute crop. So when we see that there is no much difference among the districts, so we have calculated in a showing window basis, means on a weekly basis, if we show the jute crop in a second fortnight of March, then third fortnight of March, then first fortnight of April, likewise. So in a 7 days interval, when we have run the model, then we have calculated the irrigation requirement since 2 to 30 mm to 125 to 150 millimeter. In the second fortnight of March, we have come so that it is 100 to 150 millimeter rainfall is required. So in conclusion, we can say that rain-fed jute sowing is recommended in the month of April for the coastal districts of West Bengal. Instead of March for better crop growth and establishment utilizing nor'wester rain, it is locally known as Kal Boishakhi. During the summer season, the nor'wester rain will happen, and that is the March. As the April rainfall is increasing, so we can go for the showing of jute in April month instead of March or May, because May rainfall is also in decreasing trend. So clearly we can recommend it. Then irrigation water requirement reduced by at least 25 millimeter per week for each week delay in showing since 3rd week of March till 4th week of April. It's showing when we delay the jute showing, then irrigation requirement will be reduced, but it may compromise with the next crop of this cropping sequence. So we have to balance this. That's why we recommend it. The 1st week of April is the best time for showing of the jute. So irrigation requirement of jute is highest when we show it in 2nd fortnight of March, that is 100 and 150 millimeter of water. When identifying drought-resistant and salt-tolerant jute variety has the key role to play, because we have found some results and we have published with collaborating with this CSSRI kernel in Canning Town Regional Research Station. One is research in field condition as well as spot conditions. Some tolerant varieties or we have identified, showing the better result for salt tolerant nature. And in both the species, actually in jute there is a 2 species, Orchodas olitorius and Orchodas capsularis. So both have the potential to grow in a coastal districts and the coastal saline salt affected areas, with identifying these salt tolerant varieties. And this will, I hope this it can increase the areas of in salt tolerant, which ameliorates the because it having this characteristics of the leaf falls during its growth period, which add organic matter to the soil, and it harvests 2.68 ton of carbon dioxide during its 120 days. Because we have the eddy covariance technique, we have also measured it. At least 2.68 ton is carbon, it's sequestered carbon dioxide during this life cycle period. So with this, I thank you all, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. And our next presenter is Dr. M.L. Roy from ICAR, Central Research Institute for Jute and Allied Fibers, Barakpur, West Bengal. And Dr. Roy will present on effect of climate variability on jute-based cropping system as perceived by the agricultural scientist. Dr. Roy, floor is yours. You'll get your 10 minutes to make your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I can see you. Could you kindly share your?
Yes, sir. I am sharing my screen.
Yeah.
So,
Is Dr. Roy?
yes, sir.
Are you having some difficulty?
Yes, sir. Internet is a bit slow, but
Slow.
You first open
You
your
click
and then try for sharing.
Sir, I have opened my PPT.
Then
Is it visible, sir?
no, it is not visible at all.
It's not visible.
you share your screen.
You just
Share your screen in the Zoom. Click share your screen. Yeah. Did you open your PowerPoint? I think we lost him, yeah?
Yes.
No, he's there.
Still he is there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Roy, can you hear me?
Is Dr. Roy there?
Chairman, sir, I think we lost the
Yeah.
activity withdrawal.
We lost it?
Coming.
Okay,
Yes.
he's not there. And then probably we move to next presenter. Is Miss Lal Munashing here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And she's from ICAR, National Dairy Research Institute, Eastern Regional Station, Kallani, West Bengal. And she'll make presentation of climate resilience, livestock production in coastal ecosystem of India. And you got 10 minutes for your presentation. Okay, we welcome you.
Sir, is it visible, the screen?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening to everyone present here. Today, my topic for the oral presentation is climate resilience livestock production in coastal ecosystem of India. As we know, India has large areas of highly productive coastal ecosystem, which include mangroves, salt marshes, seagrass ecosystems, and coral reefs. And the livestock breeds mostly reared in the coastal areas are Ganjam, the Loa Black Bengal breed of goat, Garol, Etka, Kendrapada breed of sheep, Chilika breed of buffalo, and nondescript cows are the mostly reared animals in the coastal areas. But the human activities like pollution, overexploitation of natural resources, soil erosion, and deforestation are causing a substantial damage to the coastal ecosystems, and out of which climate change is a major concern across the globe, affecting the human, the livestock, and the livestock production. Goltz and Hein explain resilience is the capacity of the animal to be minimally affected by disturbances and to rapidly return to the state pertained before exposure to a disturbance. And according to IPCC, resilience is also defined as the capacity of social, economic, and environmental systems to cope up with the hazardous event and reorganizing in a way to maintain the essential function, identity, and structure, while also maintaining the capacity for adaptation, learning, and transformation. Livestock adaptation to coastal climate. As we have said, nondescript cows, that is the Jersey cows, are the most popular cattle breeds, which are reared in the coastal regions, followed by the crossbred cows, which is mainly, the nondescript cows are mainly reared because they have higher adaptability to climate, plus they have high disease resistance to the climate. And the sheep and goat found in Odisha and West Bengal are known for their prolificacy, and which makes them adaptive to the climate, and they have more resistance to the common endoparasites, exceptional quality to survive in the waterlogging conditions. And this characteristic of prolificacy in hot and the humid coastal region evolves through the process of adaptation. Similarly, the nondescript cows and the buffalo breeds also have a good qualities for survivability under summer and saline harsh conditions and have a good growth and reproduction rate, whereas rearing of dairy buffalo is not common in the coastal areas. the impact of climate change, that is quality and quantity of feeds. The quality and quantity of feeds are mainly affected due to carbon dioxide and temperature, due to an increase in carbon dioxide and temperature levels in the atmosphere by affecting the composition of the pastures. And climate havocs like the flood affect the form and structure of the roots, alter the leaf growth rate, and reduce the total yield. The other effects of feeds due to climate change in livestock are changes in the land use and system, changes in the primary productivity of crops, the forage and rangeland, the species composition, and the quality of the plant material. Water. The livestock sector accounts for about 8% of global human water use, and an increase in temperature may increase animal water consumption by a factor of 2 to 3. So the change in quantity of water and timing of precipitation greatly affects the livestock. As we have all known that water salination is causing a major problem in the coast, especially in the coastal areas. And so if it occurs, then it affects the animal metabolism, their fertility, their digestion, and availability of water for the livestock also decreases due to the increase in the salinity. Increase in heavy rainfall and floods also poses a high mortality rate to animals, leading to loss of their life. The next impact of the livestock diseases. The impact of climate change on livestock diseases depend on the geographical region, the type of the land, and animal susceptibility. And the livestock health can be affected mainly by metabolic disorder, immune suppression, decreased reproductive performance, and even death, depending on the degree, the duration, and the severity of the heat exposure. Majority of the cattle diseases identified in the Sundarban regions are mainly bacterial diseases, viral, protozoan, and parasitic diseases. In these Sundarban regions, incidence of mastitis is also common among the cattle of the region and considerably decreases the milk yield. Foot and mouth diseases are also a common diseases found, and salinity is also one of the common problems faced by the farmers, affecting the crops and the livestock, which leads to diarrhea, skin diseases, liver fluke, decrease in body weight, and the decrease in their immune system. Next is the heat stress. The degree of heat stress depends upon the temperature, the relative humidity, the species, genetic makeup, and the nutritional status of animal. And when heat stress occurs, there was a high increase in temperature, and there is a reduced water availability, which affects the livestock production and productivity of the animal. It leads to reduction in the milk yield and less meat occur. But genes like ATPase, sodium potassium transporting subunit alpha 1, subunit beta 2, and this thyroid hormone receptor, fibroblast growth factor, the heat shock proteins involved with heat tolerance in farm animals. And if these genes if they have these genes, then they have the ability to be adaptive in the heat stress. And the commonly studied heat shock proteins in livestock are the heat shock protein 70, 90, and 27, out of which heat shock protein 70 was identified. Out of which heat shock protein 70 was identified to be the ideal biological marker for heat stress in the farm animals. Next is biodiversity. Biodiversity is defined as
please mute your microphone. Okay.
Yes, sir. Next is
Ms. Munasinghe, please continue.
Next is biodiversity. Biodiversity is defined as the variety of genes, organisms, and ecosystems found within a specific environment. And according to this Thomas et al. And his co-workers, climate change may eliminate 15 to 37% of all species in the world. The biodiversity loss in livestock production is mainly due to, it mainly emphasizes on the yield and economic returns by ignoring the traditional production problems. It also leads to loss of genetic and cultural diversity, and also leads to nutrient pollution, and reduces the species richness in the livestock and the crop. Adaptation strategies. Why is it necessary? Because the climate change is having detrimental effects of the coastal ecosystem via global warming. And if it keeps on decreasing, then the farmers, that is the poor people, are the main one to be affected mostly. So adaptation strategies is a must, and because this frequency of cyclones, acidification of seawater, flood, droughts, and salinity, increasing air and water temperature will keep on increasing in this upcoming years, and it will lead to livestock production and loss of livestock of protection and loss of biodiversity. Also, there was a report that 3,15,886 numbers of cattle were lost during the super cyclone in Odisha in 1999, where adaptation strategies is a must. The methods and technologies for adaptation strategies are like introduction of climate resilient food crops and poultry and livestock breeds, development of low-cost weather-controlled housing, like construction of scientifically designed housings, changes in the mixed crop livestock system, improving the diets by providing them extra concentrate, minerals and feed additives, clean and fresh water, better herd management, establishment of climate resilient smart villages and for which shelters for man and animals during climate havocs, strengthening animal disease surveillance facilities by giving them more health care to the animals, and last but not the least, in time weather forecasting for early warning of hazardous weather conditions. The other adaptation strategies is also like breeding strategies. It includes like use of locally adapted breeds of varieties that sustain well in the climate, which helps in improving the local breed through crossbreeding with climate and disease tolerant breeds, and use of molecular genetic markers for heat tolerance in the selection program. And one of the example is like in Dari, that is Nimkar Agriculture Research Institute, Fulton. Suvarna strain of Decani breed was also already developed to make sheep production system more sustainable in the changing climate, where this sheep has the ability to produce and rear twin lambs and are more adaptive to the climate, and also upgrading the gene bank where we can preserve the livestock gene to a certain period for climate resistant livestock production. Conclusion. Climate changing scenario will continue in the future, and livestock production is thought to be affected by the changes. So adaptation of local adaptive animals and breeding programs is a must. And in-time warning system of climate change, research and development of new technologies to reduce the impact of climate change is needed. And last but not the least, educating the livestock farmers regarding the climate change and determining them to have a sustainable livestock production in the changing climate is also necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Our next presenter is Bappa Das, Dr. Bappa Das from ICARE.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Central Coastal Agriculture Research Institute, Old Goa, Goa, India.
Yeah.
And he will make presentation on assessment of climate change vulnerability in coastal districts of India. Okay. Dr. Das, the floor is yours, and you got 10 minutes to make your presentation, and you finish at 10 in 10 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm sharing my screen, sir.
Yeah, please.
So is it visible, sir?
Yes, visible.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, respected chairperson, co-chairperson, rapporteurs, and distinguished delegates, a very good evening to you all. So today I will be presenting a paper entitled Assessment of Climate Change Vulnerability in Coastal Districts of India. So first, what is vulnerability? Vulnerability to the climate change is the degree to which an agricultural unit has capacity to sustain the damage due to climate change, including climate variability and extremes. The process of identification, quantification, and prioritization of vulnerability in a system is referred to as vulnerability assessment. And vulnerability is a multidimensional concept, which is a function of exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity of a particular system. So it can be calculated as vulnerability equal to function of exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity, or it can be written as vulnerability as a function of potential impact minus adaptive capacity, where potential impact includes exposure and sensitivity. So why we need this local assessment of vulnerability, like for coastal districts of India, when the state level as well as pan-India level studies are available? Like Rao et al. In 2016 mapped the vulnerability of Indian agriculture to climate change at district level, and they have used the data of 2001 Indian census data, and they have used review of literature and expert opinion based weights to the each indicator to calculate the vulnerability, which is very much subjective. At the same time, Sehgal et al. 2013 used analytic hierarchy process for agricultural vulnerability mapping of India. And we can say that this analytic hierarchy process is a semi-subjective method. So these subjective methods are highly expert based. So there is a need for development of objective based method. So we have used some statistical objective based method for vulnerability assessment. And at the same time, though the climate change is a global phenomena, it manifests and manifestations and impacts vary locally. So do the mitigation and adaptation strategies. So the local vulnerability assessment is needed for the development of mitigation and adaptation strategies specific to the community needs and priorities at the local level. So based on this background, we took the research work, and we have collected various indicators under exposure, adaptive capacity, and sensitivity. And under exposure, we have calculated various indicators like variability in annual rainfall, rate of change in maximum temperature, minimum temperature during Kharif season and Rabi season, then frequency of extremely heavy rainy days, frequency of very heavy rainy days, frequency of excess rainfall years, moderate drought years, and frequency of severe drought years. All these indices were having a positive relationship with vulnerability. That means for a particular district, if these values are increasing, the vulnerability of that particular district will be increasing. And these indicators were calculated from India Meteorological Department data source. Then under adaptive capacity, indicators like forest cover, villages electrified, rural road connectivity, fertilizer consumption, net irrigated area, human development index, livestock density, rural female literacy, net sown area, and cropping intensity were collected or computed. And all these indicators were having negative relationship with vulnerability. That means if these indicator values were increasing, then that will indicate the vulnerability will be decreasing for that particular district. So we have collected from these data from different sources like Forest Survey of India, District Census Handbook 2011, the Directorate of Economics and Statistics of respective states, and Government of India District Census Handbook data. Then for sensitivity, we have collected different indicators like human density index, degraded area, food grain yield, groundwater development stress, groundwater availability, soil organic carbon content, and water holding capacity of the soil. And out of these indicators, human density index and degraded area were having positive relationship, while others were having negative relationship with vulnerability. And the data source include FAO soil map, a report published by Maji et al., then population census, and Center Groundwater Development Board. Then all those indicators were converted into scores using these two formulations. First one is used for positive functional relationship, and second one is used for negative functional relationship. At the same time, for weighting, we have used an entropy-based approach. To calculate the entropy, first the indicators were made scale independent using this formula. That means each indicator value was divided by the sum of that indicator value. Then those scale independent values were used to calculate the entropy using this formula. And then this entropy was in turn used to calculate the weights for each indicator. Then the index were calculated as a multiplication of score into weight. The results revealed that Kutch district of Gujarat and Porbandar and Junagadh districts of Gujarat were having the maximum exposure, while the districts of Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, and Kerala were having moderate to low exposure values. Similar results was found for sensitivity. That means Kutch district and some districts of Maharashtra like Thane, Raigad, and Ratnagiri, these districts were having maximum sensitivity, whereas the districts of Goa, Karnataka, and Kerala were having moderate to low sensitivity. Same was found for adaptive capacity. We could see that the Porbandar districts were having higher adaptive capacity. At the same time, the Raigad districts, while the districts of Karnataka and Kerala were having low to moderate adaptive capacity. If we integrate all these three parameters, that is adaptive capacity, sensitivity, and exposure, we could get the vulnerability. And we could see that the vulnerability was maximum for Kutch district of Gujarat, followed by Porbandar and Junagadh districts, while the districts of Goa, Karnataka, and Kerala were having low to moderate vulnerability to climate change. So from this above discussions, we could conclude that the districts of Gujarat showed maximum vulnerability to climate change, while the districts of Karnataka and Kerala were found to be less vulnerable to climate change. So we should develop strategies and developmental activities to those areas which are very much vulnerable to climate change to facilitate adaptation strategies. So thank you.
Yes, Chairman, sir. Chairman, sir, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I have
Yes,
finished
sir.
my.
The presentation was over, sir. Yeah.
I have joined.
Mr.
Now
Roy,
can, yes, sir. I have joined, sir.
okay. Could you kindly share your screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have already shared my screen.
No, but we can see actually.
I just started screen sharing.
Just a second. Are you having some technical problem? Because you can see your screen actually.
This may be the bandwidth problem, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Low bandwidth may be the.
So
Can you please send your presentation so that we can
Yes, yes.
from our screen if it is.
I am sending my presentation.
Yes, yes, it is visible.
yeah, it is visible. It is visible. Okay. And kindly click on the presentation mode on the right hand side.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, it is in your machine. It is left hand side. Okay.
Sir, is it visible now, no, sir?
Yes, yes, yes.
Now
please.
it is clear.
It is clear. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, good evening, everybody. I am Dr. Maniklal Rai. Today, I am presenting my topic on effect of climate variability on jute-based cropping system as perceived by the agricultural scientists. Before going to my topic, I just want to inform the importance of jute, the golden fiber. Nowadays, where there is a huge hue and cry for the plastic pollution all over the world, so the importance of jute is growing day by day internationally. It is one of the most important commercial natural fiber crops, and in India, it is cultivated around 7.50 lakh hectare area. And about 5 million of country's population directly or indirectly dependent on this crop for their livelihood. And jute is a very much environment friendly and biodegradable fiber, and it is used in packaging, textile, geotextile, paper, building materials, and automobile industries. It is also used in making different value-added diversified products. Not only the fiber, but also the jute byproducts like its sticks and leaves can also be used in various manner. Jute plants are also a very huge source of renewable biomass, and jute cultivation involves very low carbon footprint and water footprint. India is the largest producer of raw jute fiber and jute products in world, and it earns a huge foreign exchange annually by exporting the jute products. Good quality jute fiber is the prerequisite for making attractive jute diversified products, but good quality jute fiber requires proper growth of the crop and proper improved rating of the stem. So the rationale of my study is that jute-based cropping system is one of the most popular traditional cropping system in eastern states of India, especially in West Bengal, Bihar, and in northwestern state like Assam. And livelihood of these farmers who are mainly growing jute are directly involved in the performance of the jute cultivation in terms of yield and in terms of fiber quality. But due to the global phenomenon of climate change and its resultant weather vagaries and climatic aberrations, this important cropping system is also being affected. To address this issue, my study has been emphasized to explicit the perception of the agricultural scientist about the effect of climate variability on jute-based cropping system. The objectives of my study were to study the perception of the scientist about the causes of climate change and changes in climatic parameters, to know the perception of the scientist about effect of climate variability on jute-based cropping system, to identify the mitigation and adaptive strategy to counter the effect of climate variability in jute-based cropping system as perceived by the scientist. I have applied a very simple methodology. I have prepared a comprehensive list of items or statements pertaining to the causes of climate change and changes in climatic parameters, effect of climate variability on jute-based cropping system, and mitigation and adaptive strategy. Then the scientists were asked to give their responses regarding each item of statement on a 5-point continuum ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree category. The items and statement on which majority of the scientists were in strongly agree and agree category, that means the items or statement on which there is a greater level of consensus among the scientists were taken into consideration for the purpose of the study. And the study was conducted taking the sample from the ICAR Kaiser Baratpur. So these are the profile characteristics of my respondents. First pie diagram shows the age of the respondents, and it is shown that the above 50 years of scientists, there is 38.89%, 41 to 50 years category of scientists fallen in the group in 33.33%, 22.22% were in the age category of 30 to 40%, and only 5.36% were fallen in the age category of below 30 years. Second pie diagram shows the work experience of the respondents, and it is shown that more than 20 years work experience was observed in 38.89% of scientists. 10 to 20 years work experience were observed in 44.44% of scientists. And from the sample scientists, less than 10 years work experience was found in 16.67% of scientists. And the sample scientists were from a versatile discipline of agricultural science. They are from agricultural extension, entomology, agronomy, seed technology, plant pathology, plant physiology, agricultural statistics, soil science, genetics and plant breeding and biotechnology. So the representation of the every discipline of scientists were taken in my study. And the nature of work of the respondents belongs to research, which is 38.89%. Majority of the scientists are fallen in the category of research plus extension, that is 55.56%, and only 5.56% of the scientists are fallen in the category of extension. So from the profile characteristics, it can be shown that the sample was very versatile. They are very learned, experienced, and every discipline of the agricultural scientists were represented very properly. So these are the perception of the scientists about the causes of climate change and changes in climatic parameters. SA means strongly agree and A means agree. So strongly, the summation of the strongly agree percentage and agree percentage are taken into account. So these are the items and statements. So climate change is happening due to global warming. 100% of the sample scientists perceive this statement as right. Human activities are responsible for global warming. Nature and intensity of rain have become unusual. Number of days in summer has been increasing from last 20 to 30 years. Occurrences of dry spell have been rising in recent years. Seasonal crop calendar has been changed due to climate variability. Average summer temperature has been growing from the past. Occurrences of weather vagaries have been increased. Indiscriminate use of inorganic fertilizer has helped to increase greenhouse gas emission. Monsoon is delayed by 15 to 30 days in every year. Duration of rainy season has been reduced from before. In next 20 years, there will be significant rise in average temperature and decrease in average rainfall. Summer has been starting early in recent years by 15 to 30 days. Average winter temperature has been rising from last 20 to 30 years. Amount of average rainfall has been declining from the past. Spring, autumn, and pre-winter season have been disappearing nowadays. So these are the items or statements where majority of the scientists perceived, and this statement consists of the causes of climate change and the changes in climatic parameters. So these are the statements where majority of the scientists were fallen in the category of strongly agree and agree category. So what are the effect of on crop for climatic variability? These are change in duration of traditional crop seasons, increased incidences of crop damage and yield losses, crop losing before harvesting, erratic behavior of rainfall, drought and storm or nor'wester during early growth stage of jute, reducing its yield, prematuring flowering in jute due to unexpected low temperature, delay in usual sowing and harvesting times, waterlogged situation due to heavy rain during late growth stage producing low quality fiber. So these are the effect of climatic variability on the crop, and majority of the scientists were in consensus with this effect. So these are the effect on soil and groundwater, where majority of the scientists were in strongly agree and agree category. These are groundwater table has fallen. Dependency on groundwater for irrigation has been increased. Desirable soil moisture has become unavailable during sowing time of crops. soils have become drier and hard due to increased soil temperature. Water holding capacity of soil has been reduced. These are
You
the
got 2 more
effect of-
minutes to finish, please.
Yes, sir.
2 more minutes to finish.
Okay. So these are the effect on pest occurrences due to the climatic variability. So in this slide, it is shown that new insects and diseases are coming due to the climatic variability, and also the new weed flora are also coming due to the climatic variability. And majority of the scientists were very much agree in these statements. And these are the effect of abnormal rainfall pattern. Due to the heavy rainfall, before the harvesting of the jute and the other crops, the yield of the crop and fiber quality is very much reducing. And after that, due to the continuous drought situation during the early growth phases of the jute, the crop is suffering very much. And sometimes the lack of rainfall and the drying of the natural water bodies are creating very much problem for the rating of the jute. So these are the statements where these things are reflected, and the sample scientists are agreeing on these effects. So I have also collected the mitigation and adaptation strategy to counter the climatic variability effects for jute-based cropping system as perceived by the scientists. So these are enlisted in this slide. So these are changes in agro practices like change in sowing time, because premature flowering is a very much problem in jute cultivation. So if we delay the sowing time so that the low temperature cannot be encompasses with the jute cultivation, then the flower will not come. So we can adjust the sowing time of the jute so that the premature flowering do not occur. That is again the row spacing for the control of the weed, crop rotation, tillage practices, use of short duration crop cultivars, SRI technology for resource conservation, nitrification inhibitor, etc. Use of bioproduct of jute, use of bioethanol, rainwater harvesting to provide the life-saving irrigation in case of the severe drought, soil mulching to conserve the soil moisture, jute mook intercropping, adding organic matter in soil for increasing the water holding capacity of the soil, drip irrigation in vegetable to conserve the soil moisture, mixed cropping, diversified farming, proper drainage channel to drain out the excess water during the waterlogged condition. Preparation of community nursery bed, then sowing of the crop, split application of nitrogenous fertilizer for efficient use of the nitrogen and fertilizer throughout the growth period of the crop, integrated pest management and integrated nutrient management practices, low cost polyhouses technology, less water requiring crops, cultivation of less water requiring crops, crop insurance, sowing in furrows to get the soil moisture properly, use of green manure to improve the physical property of the soil, soil test-based fertilizer application, sulfur application in soil to control the drought effect in case of the jute, adoption of profitable cropping system, rating of jute by Kaiser Sona to get the best quality of fiber, in situ jute rating, and most important is weather-based agro advisory and re-sowing if there is an incidence of severe crop damage. So in conclusion, I just want to say that so there are the many effects of climate variability which are being identified by the experienced scientists and which are being seen in the jute-based cropping system. to save the jute-based cropping system, we have to put emphasis on the resource conservation technology and the eco model and the all other model. The mitigation and adaptation strategy which the learned scientists have identified as per their perception. So, so that this jute-based farming system can counter the detrimental effect of the climatic variability. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. And our last presenter of this session is Ms. Zara Nouri-Samele from University of Toronto, Scarborough. And she will make presentation on the challenge of climate change in agriculture management in the Persian Gulf, Oman Sea coast in Iran.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Please share your screen.
Please share your screen.
1 minute. You can see my screen?
Yes, please. Could you kindly change it to presentation mode? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The name of presentation is the challenge of climate change in agriculture management in the Persian Gulf and Oman Sea coast in Iran. Agriculture is a major part of Iran economy that will face different trade and opportunities and threats from future climate change. Changing rainfall and temperature patterns challenge long-term agriculture management and planning. The climate determines the type of agricultural product that can be cultivated in the region. Important factor for defining the growing season are the temperature and humidity, precipitation means, that will be affected by climate change. A Persian Gulf Oman Sea extends in northwest and southeast direction along with Zagros mountain range with 9 sub-basin. This area covered by watershed is 430 to 39 kilometers square. A climate of this watershed varies from cold and semi-arid climate in the north, warm and semi-arid in the middle, and warm and humid climate in the south. Average annual rainfall is 65 millimeter, which decreases from northwest to southwest. Mountain area occupy 65% of watershed, and remaining 35% is by plain. Low latitude and high temperature compared to the north of Iran, access to southern sea moisture has increased the growing season in this area. The southeast coast of Persian Gulf is one of agriculture production hubs in Iran. Annual production is more than 16 million tons of agriculture products. One part of the important agriculture needs of Iran in the cold season is produced by the Persian Gulf and Oman Sea coast. Some of the valuable tropical fruits like banana, mango, coconut, and etc. also date are produced annually in Makran coast. 80,000 tons in out of season crop. Because in Iran we have 4 seasons, and just in another area, summer is season for produce agriculture, but in Oman, winter. That's why we call out of season crop. In this study, the effect of climate change and agriculture management on the coast of Persian Gulf and Macron has been investigated. For this purpose, precipitation and temperature parameters of 10 synoptic stations under RCP scenarios 2.6, 4.5, and 8.5 have been simulated with SDSM tool. You can see maps of average growing season in Iran. You can see from north to south growth season will increase. My results show that in northwest of Persian Gulf, decreased precipitation and increased temperature will be more and significant in future. In Oman Sea, just in scenario 8.5, I saw that in slightly temperature increase, but not too much different with present time. So we can see that in future, Persian Gulf will face more problem. And northwest of Persian Gulf has more product of agriculture that with climate change make a big problem. The results show that probability of increase and decrease of temperature and precipitation in Persian Gulf station is higher than Macron coast. The southern coast of Iran have the longest growing season in the country due to their unique geographical and climate characteristics. Also, the northwest of Persian Gulf, where agriculture product is especially important, under RCP 2.6, 4.5, and 8.5, the maximum temperature shows further increase in future. However, increased maximum temperature could decrease crop diversity and threaten plants with lower temperature threshold in the Persian Gulf coast. Also, in the east of Macron coast, temperature will increase significantly for RCP 8.5, but not too much like Persian Gulf. Generally, agriculture management and effects of climate change in the Persian Gulf coastal require the application of mitigation and adaptation plans. Thank you. If you have any question, I can respond.
Any question for Ms. Nuri Samela?
No question?
See any actually.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I am having some technical problem here. We have listened to many interesting presentations, and
Miss Joda,
from this
please
presentation,
stop sharing.
stop sharing. Yeah.
Miss Jara, please stop sharing your
Miss
screen.
Nuri Samela, could you stop sharing?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And we also presented their field level experience. Field experiments and their communication for experiment. And I thank you, the organizers, for kindly inviting me to chair the session. Also, all the
Chairman, sir, it is not audible, maybe due to some technical problem.
If the presentations are over, then co-chairman can sum up and close this session. I think chairman having some technical problem.
Please give.
I think Dr. Borman.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Borman, I think
Okay.
the chairman must have gone there to check the connectivity. So wait for some time, but somebody else can intervene in the meantime.
Sir, co-chairman can put their his remarks.
Co-chairman is there.
Yeah.
Dr. is there. He can continue. He can make and continue.
Can I continue?
Yes, sir.
Please.
First of all, thanks a lot to Professor Mirza, because very meticulously he managed the time, and compliments to all the presenter, the invited speakers as well as the regular speakers, to stick to their time and gave a very fruitful and eye-opening presentations. So indeed, there are 7 invited presentations, out of which 5 could be presented, and 2 of the presentations like Rax Cruise as well as Rambani, that could not happen because they are not available. And in the regular presentations, we also had 5 presentations. It was in the invited presentations, it was really wonderful. It started with Dr. Srinivasa Rao. He presented the impact of the climate change and other forecasting on agriculture. He gave a holistic view based on his earlier experience of Krida as well as in the Naum. Then followed by that, we had a presentation from Professor Prabhakar, who gave a complete declaration or the complete statement of the innovation that NICRA did from different perspective, the adaptation, intervention, molecular breeding, brinjal grafting, carbon sequestration to aquaculture. It was a whole gamut of a story and the agricultural research that is being put forward for a climate resilience agriculture. It includes also the shrimp culture, then mechanized fishing, village resilience, upscaling of CRA, and many more. The third lecture was very interesting lecture by Professor Sugata Hajara from Jadavpur University. And he gave a statement that how the climate change is affecting the coral reefs of Andaman Nicobar Islands and the impact on the marine fishing. That's a very interesting study. And he could say that the southern part of this Andaman Nicobar that is more affected due to this coral bleaching as well as the marine fisheries, whereas the northern part is not that much. And he has explained the reason for that, that how this water jet, the hot water jet that comes from Indonesian area and it enters into that Andaman region. Dr. Sivakumar, in his presentation, he gave a detailed narration of management of climate change and natural disaster impact in the agriculture. The current as well as the future trends, both he mentioned. The natural disasters, the promoting sustainable development. He made a mention about the greenhouse gas emissions and its impact on accelerating this global warming. Professor Dixit from Nepal, he presented about he was emphasizing more the need for much more conversations and the kind of the policy interventions, various challenges ahead. And very clearly he mentioned that even if that is a landlocked country, but the impact, what is happening in the coastal region, it has a far-sighted effect on the hill areas also, because all are connected to the same circulation process. Two of the presenters, the Rex Cruz and Rambani, could not present. So all of them had a very eye-opening and an excellent presentations. So thanks and compliment to all the presenters. Then coming to the regular presenter, the first presenter was Namdev Mashkar, and it was an interesting presentation on the tuber crop, which is much less told, but he has said that how it can be a climate resilient and it can be an excellent product towards the income security. Had he made a mention about various kind of tuber crops, in namely cassava, sweet potato, then diascorea, colocasia, and many more, which is being grown in the Konkan region. He also explained that why the tuber crops are climate resilient. It is the low cost input cost is there, as well as its return is also considerable. Not it can be compared with any of the above economic crops like cereals and the pulses. And the economics of the different tuber crops, he made a mention. The most interesting thing that good number of palatable dishes and the sweets which is prepared out of that, which attracted me the most, that different kinds of sweets, the sweet dishes, how it is prepared from those kind of root crops. In the next presentation, second president, Dr. Barman, he presented of course, this is on the jute, the trend analysis of the rainfall and temperature of the coastal districts. 3 districts he took, for example, in computing the irrigation water requirement for the jute crop. It's a completely science-based and science-backed, the irrigation scheduling, and he made use of the crop watt model, which is most innovative and the latest model he has made use. And he has also recommended that why, he has proved basically from null hypothesis that why you need an irrigation in the initial, that is the first phase of the jute crop growing. Next is the fourth presenter, Ms. Lal Muarsangi. She presented about the livestock impact on livestock, the climate change impact on the livestock and livestock disease, how the salinity affects the livestock disease and details. Dr. Bappa has presented the assessment of climate change vulnerability to the coastal districts. He has given a detailed account what is the real meaning of vulnerability in the operational way, and why to assess the vulnerability in the local scale that he has emphasized, the need of that thing. and large number of indicators, very scientifically backed indicators like exposure indicators, adaptive indicators, sensitive indicators he has calculated. Then he has scored it based on the cognitive intelligence from the scientists, and the weightages are calculated. Then this all these indicators are basically made scale free, and then entropy was computed, and at the end the adaptive capacity and the vulnerability was mentioned. Dr. Emil Ray, of course, in first attempt he could not due to some communication problem, but in the very nicely has presented the jute-based cropping system as desired by the agriculture scientist and perceived by the agriculture scientist. Basically, it's very interesting that based on the intelligence, that is what we call the intellectual resources, how we can arrive at that the impact of this climate change on the jute crops. It's quite interesting that based on the socioeconomic kind of survey he has made use of. The last presentation was, of course, not from India, but it is from the Iran. That is the challenge of climate change, challenge of climate change in the agricultural management in the Persian Gulf of Oman and in the sea coast. Is very interesting because we could understand vis-a-vis, we can compare the situation in the Indian coast as well as in the Persian Gulf of Oman. And sea has also taken care of precipitation, temperature of the 10 different stations, and RCP at different weightages. It has been calculated, studied. And the interesting part, she has mentioned that the southern coast has a longer growing season, which is perhaps, to my understanding, is good for the crops. He has mentioned the growth and yield of the crops. So that's all from my side, but thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. And Chairman said he's already here, and I'm extremely sorry I took this opportunity before because there was some communication problem.
You actually saved me because from my end I have been having this internet problem.
Yeah, I agree. And first, you could not hear perhaps, and a big compliments to you. So nicely and so meticulously you coordinated the entire session timely, and it's a very crisp and very nice way you arranged. And thank you very much from my side to you as well as the organizers. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. And I also thank all the presenters who have made very interesting presentation, and a lot of the things we have learned from these presentations. And I am actually very much fascinated because of this, what is going on actually at the ground level actually. And so much of research our scientists are now doing and contributing for the sustainability of our agriculture and to face the challenge of future climate change. And it is really, really very encouraging endeavors which government and the private sector levels are now taking. And our scientists are making very significant contribution for a better and sustainable future. Thank you so much, and stay safe and healthy. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
So,
see you again.
So
see you again in a couple of days. In a couple of days, Professor Mirza. I don't
hopefully.
Know. My impression is that Professor Mirza hardly sleeps possibly in the night. Whenever I send him a message, there is a reply back from him, whether it would be dead of the night there or early morning or late in the evening hours. I think that is the spirit with which he works also. I've got deep respect for him, and Dr. Datta is a very close friend of mine, and then very good. And I was so much impressed with one or two presentations, one of Dr. Shiva Kumar's also, and then I think his mic is muted. In any case, we are fortunate to have a very experienced person like Professor Shiva Kumar here. Thank you very much, sir. And you are very much on time. We have closed down at 9 o'clock for a long session. That's very nice. And organizers, Dr. Barman or Dr. Mandal can kindly propose the thanks.
On behalf of organizer as well as on behalf of ISCAR, I would like to thank Dr. Monirul Kadir Mirza for chairing this session as well as to conduct the proceedings nicely. I would like to thank Dr. Datta for co-chairing this session. Also, there are 5 invited talk across the globe. Dr. C. Srinivas Rao, Dr. M. Prabhakar, Dr. Sugoto Hajra, Dr. M.B.K. Sivakumar, Dr. Ajay Dixit. On behalf of organizer, I would like to thank all the invited speakers for their contribution in this international symposium. There are 6 contributory the presentation were there. That is from Dr. Namdev, Dr. D. Burman, Dr. M.L. Roy, Miss Lal Mohan Sange, Dr. Bappa Das, and Miss Jora. Our organizer is thankful to all the voluntary speakers for their for sharing their research finding. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
All the best.
So
Thank you.
the session is ended in time.
Okay. Bye.
Great. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.